731, 4 to you, 6 to me. Northern Plains, Xianxia blessed land. Land spirit, I brought you a live desolate beast, come and check it out. Feng Yuan said as he opened his immortal aperture, activating a dozen gu worms as he took out a lion and placed it on the ground. This lion was large like a giant elephant. It was brown-yellow in color, and thick fur covered more than half of its body. It was sleeping now, making a snoring sound. It was the yellow jade lion. It was originally injured heavily, on the brink of death. But as long as it was still alive, with Feng Yuan's current abilities and assets, he could heal it back to full health. Xianxia land spirit stroked his beard, walking around the yellow jade lion as he observed. He could move freely now, the chi path seals on his body were all released. Good lion, even if you are sleeping, you look so fierce. Not bad. Saying so, Xianxia land spirit stretched out his arm and opened the yellow jade lion's mouth, seeing the tightly clenched teeth. Good teeth. Xianxia land spirit praised. He continued to touch the lion along its body, until he reached the area between its hind legs. Throughout the process, Xianxia land spirit had been activating gu worms silently. After inspecting it, he was pleased. Not bad, it has vigor and vitality, it can reproduce as well. It is a pity that my blessed land is a refinement path blessed land, it is not great for raising these fierce beasts. Xianxia land spirit had 12 desolate beasts, he was very experienced with them and had become quite an expert, he was not unfamiliar with desolate beasts at all. But Xianxia blessed land was a refinement path blessed land, refining gu here would have higher chances of succeeding. But there was no assistance or help for raising beasts. Meanwhile, Hu immortal blessed land was an enslavement path blessed land, it was good for raising fox groups. The fox groups inside Hu immortal blessed land would have greater chances of producing a desolate fox. Blessed lands and grotto heavens were all very different, each of them had their own specialties. This was because blessed lands and grotto heavens were the immortal apertures of gu immortals. When gu immortals undergo immortal ascension, they would take in heaven and earth chi, and according to their understanding towards heaven and earth, their immortal aperture world would be created relating to the path of the gu worm that they toss into it. Xianxia land spirit was very pleased with this yellow jade lion, he quickly gave Feng Yuan 88 immortal essence stones, at the same time, he gave the details of the killer move unfamiliar face. Feng Yuan looked through the details of it in front of Xianxia land spirit. This killer move had an extraordinary origin, it came from Thieving Heaven Demon Venerable. As expected of Thieving Heaven Demon Venerable, he had an innovative idea and went on a creative path. Feng Yuan praised, there are only 300 gu worms used here, but they involve transformation path, strength path, wisdom path, and others, for a total of 6 paths. Some of the gu worms are rare, it seems that it will take a while to recreate this killer move, after I collect all of these gu worms. Xianxia, do you have these gu worms? Xianxia land spirit shook his head, chuckling, what would I keep these gu for? I cannot use this killer move. Unfamiliar face, vaguely familiar face, and familiar face, these 3 killer moves are a series. What you obtained is merely the mortal killer move, able to transform into someone people do not know. If they know the person, you will be exposed. The latter 2 are immortal killer moves, even if you transform into a familiar person, you would not be exposed. Thieving Heaven Demon Venerable seemed to have left behind an inheritance of this, if you have the opportunity, you might obtain the other 2 killer moves in your lifetime, who knows? Feng Yuan laughed bitterly, how could I have such luck, to coincidentally find the other 2 immortal killer moves? The inheritances of these 2 might have been taken by others already. Although he said that, he was moved in his heart. He thought about the time in Northern Plains, when he obtained the inheritance that involved Thieving Heaven Demon Venerable's Luopa Valley inheritance. He had already refined the key to enter the inheritance, open door Gu and closed door Gu. But he had not acted yet. Gu master inheritances were not easy to obtain. Especially demonic path inheritances, they were usually much harder than righteous path inheritances, and much more dangerous. Thieving Heaven Demon Venerable's inheritance was definitely an extremely dangerous place. With the situation being unclear, and Myriad Self being unusable, Fang Yuan would rather wait a while longer than take the risk unnecessarily. Fang Yuan did not place much expectation on this, because he had guessed long ago, the inheritance clue that I obtained was obviously not the only one out there. Thieving Heaven Demon Venerable did not want his inheritance to remain undiscovered, thus he spread the clues far and wide to increase the chances. This inheritance had been created such a long time ago, someone might have gone there already. Not speaking of anyone else, just look at Spectral Soul Demon Venerable, he seemed to have used Dang Hun Mountain and Luopa Valley to cultivate Soul Path. Since Thieving Heaven Demon Venerable's inheritance involves Luopa Valley, I'm afraid Spectral Soul Demon Venerable has already been involved in it. In fact, he might have taken Luopa Valley away already. Clearing up his mind, Fang Yuan took out 3 completed Immortal Gu recipes and handed them to Langya Land's spirit. This is the current transaction. Langya Land's spirit received the Immortal Gu recipes and checked them, seeing that there were no problems. He praised Fang Yuan's talent again. Rascal, I rarely admire people, but your talent in deducing Immortal Gu recipes has truly made me look at you in a different light. Land Spirit, I was about to talk to you about this. Fang Yuan said, regarding the transaction of the Immortal Gu recipes, I would like to change the details of our transactions. Oh. All of your Immortal Gu recipes that have a high completion rate have been deduced by me already. The remaining ones have 60 to 70% completion rate, or even under 50%. I want to deduce these Immortal Gu recipes, but it would take a long time if I want to complete them. If I have to spend a month or 2 on them, I would not be able to do anything else. I suggest that we change the details of our transaction. Before Fang Yuan finished, Langya Land's spirit shook his head. Not changing, why must we change? I've spent so many Immortal Essence Stones, wasn't it because you could deduce Immortal Gu recipes? You are a Wisdom Path Gu Immortal, and you are so skilled at deducing Immortal Gu recipes, why do you not want to continue? At most, I can increase the price and pay you a bit more compensation. Langya Land's spirit, don't reject me yet, listen to me, I know you will be interested. Fang Yuan laughed confidently, my suggestion is this, from now on, you will take charge of deducing the Immortal Gu recipes. Whenever you encounter a problem and cannot continue, I will help you deduce the next step and get over that hurdle. Each time, I will only charge 2 Immortal Essence Stones. What? So it is such a deal. Langya Land's spirit fell into deep thought. Fang Yuan's suggestion had indeed moved him. After all, he was Longhair Ancestor's land spirit, his refinement path attainment was quasi-great grandmaster, he had skills in deducing Immortal Gu recipes. The reason he did not finish deducing these Immortal Gu remnant recipes was because he had met with a tough problem in each of them and could not continue until he resolved it. If he passed this obstacle, he might be able to advance through the Immortal Gu recipe easily, and successfully complete it. Thus, Langya Land's spirit would only need to pay Fang Yuan 2 Immortal Essence Stones, it would be much cheaper than their former price. Of course, if the Immortal Gu remnant recipe was very difficult, Fang Yuan might earn even more Immortal Essence Stones than before. But Langya Land's spirit was confident, with his refinement path attainment, the first situation would be more likely. This way, Fang Yuan, your income will be much lower. Ah, I almost forgot, you are selling Daoist Gu now, your business is booming, is that why you do not want this work anymore? Langya Land's spirit jumped to realization. Fang Yuan laughed, Land Spirit, this transaction benefits you too. After getting so many Immortal Gu recipes, and having regained your freedom, you can refine Immortal Gu again. When refining Immortal Gu, the vast majority of attempts fails, the success rate is simply too low, and you would expend an incredible amount of resources. I am helping you to save immortal essence stones, shouldn't you be thanking me? Humph, I knew you would say that. Langya Land's spirit rolled his eyes, saying, I can agree with this, but I have a condition. What condition? It is a long story. Do you know about Qin by Sheng's auction? Langya Land's spirit could not leave the blessed land, but he knew clearly about the things happening in northern plains. Of course I know. Fong Yuan nodded. Langya Land's spirit continued, you are aware that some time ago, a mysterious force attacked my Langya blessed land. They all failed, and during this process I captured some Gu immortals. I intend to sell them all, or rather, I want to sell their blessed lands. Selling blessed lands? Fong Yuan looked at Langya Land's spirit with some shock. This was a very big move. Is this business practical? Fong Yuan's expression was solemn. It would be 1,000 times more popular than my guts Gu business. After Gu immortals buy these blessed lands, they can swallow them and raise their cultivation level. They can also skip heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities. Why did you not keep them for yourselves? Langya Land's spirit shook his head. To swallow a rank 6 blessed land, one needs master level attainment in that realm. To swallow a rank 7 blessed land, one needs grandmaster level. To swallow a rank 8 grotto heaven, one will need great grandmaster attainment. Although my refinement path attainment is high, I am not involved in many other paths. And the most important reason is, I do not want to devour them. My Langya blessed land has already reached the limits of a blessed land, any progress would elevate it to a grotto heaven. A grotto heaven's tribulations are far more dangerous. Back then, I purposely weakened Langya grotto heaven until it became a blessed land. Why would I raise it up again? Fong Yuan understood, that is true. Wait, your condition is to ask me to sell these blessed lands at the auction in your place. Langya Land's spirit raised his thumb, saying with a tone of flattery, you are a smart lad. Fong Yuan stared with wide-opened eyes, do you want to kill me? No, this is definitely impossible. Once I sell these blessed lands, I will become the biggest target of everyone. It earns too much attention. How could have the ability to capture all these Gu immortals? If I appear like this, that mysterious force would know and associate me with Langya blessed land. Next time when they attack you, they might even attack my blessed land. Isn't the Inkman King Mo Tan Sang your good friend? Ask him to go. Sigh, he is an Inkman immortal, his origin is not good and has always been ostracized by humans. Furthermore, he has his family and Inkman City to take care of. He is not appropriate. Langya Land's spirit shook his head. Oh. You do not want him to go die, so you want to send me to die. Don't make it sound so terrible, don't you have the killer move unfamiliar face? With this killer move, other Gu immortals cannot identify your true form. Langya Land's spirit said in a low tone. Fong Yuan gave an assessing look at the land spirit. I was wondering why you were so generous, giving this precious killer move to me, so you had a plan from the start. Langya Land's spirit could not take it anymore. He stared with furious eyes as he shouted, Rascal, do you think I'm unfamiliar with you? You have ridiculous guts, since when have you been scared? You even destroyed Imperial Court blessed land and toppled 88 Truyang building. As long as the benefits are high enough, you are a desperado. Afraid of this matter? Just tell me, how much do you want? Fong Yuan snorted coldly, we will split the profits from selling the blessed lands, at the least, it has to be a 4-to-6 ratio. 4-to-6 ratio? You are too greedy, you are asking for 40%. Langya Land's spirit screamed. A cold light flashed in Fong Yuan's eyes, his face was grim, you are wrong, land spirit, my intention is, I will take 60%, you will take 40%. Langya Land's spirit was stunned, even though he had lived for so long, he was shocked by Fong Yuan's shamelessness and greed. He breathed in deeply, staring at Fang Yuan's face. Such words, you have the face to say it? Why wouldn't I? Fang Yuan's face was thick as a city wall. I am going to take a huge risk involving my life. Without enough profits to motivate me, I will not do it. This price is already the lowest. I am considering this based on the fact that we are old friends. This is a friendly price. Friendly price? I think you are trying to con a friend. So no deal. Consider it more. This is the price I want. There is still some time until the auction. I am leaving first. Fang Yuan opened a stargate. Get lost. Chapter 732, Top-Tier Mortal Killer Move. Hu Immortal Blessed Land, Dang Hun Palace. Fang Yuan was sitting cross-legged on a cushion, looking at a pair of bat wings in front of him with full concentration. A pair of large bat wings was hovering in front of him, thin and small scales of an eerie blue color with each having the size of a pinky finger grew on the wings. As light refracted from the scales, it seemed to be giving off starlight. After Fang Yuan returned from Xianxia Blessed Land, he started repairing the star demon bat's wings. After 9 days and 9 nights of effort, it had reached the current crucial moment. Whether I can fix these bat wings or not depends on this. Fang Yuan willed and summoned a mortal goo from his aperture. He flicked his finger and threw this crucial mortal goo in. The mortal goo turned into a drop of jade green liquid which created a layer of green light and it shot into the bat wings. The radiance flowed like water, the green light spread and soon covered the entire pair of bat wings. In the blink of an eye, the green light dispersed and was replaced by fine hair that covered the whole of the star demon bat wings. Fang Yuan meticulously observed and probed with his 10 fingers in turn. Following his movement, the green-haired bat wings also made constant turns in the air, letting Fang Yuan observe it from all angles. Fang Yuan spread open his fingers, the shrunken star demon bat wings also unfolded. When he saw fine hair growing inside the bat wings, he nodded in satisfaction. When Shirley attacked and killed this star demon bat, he attacked with no restraint, causing the wings to be greatly damaged when I obtained it. Now I have invested my full effort into restoring it, but whether I can restore it or not, even I don't have much confidence. Fang Yuan heaved a sigh and stood up. He casually waved his hand, hundreds of goo worms flew and circled around the green-haired bat wings, tightly securing it inside. Fang Yuan then passed by the bat wings and walked out of this secret room. He closed the door of the secret room. Darkness enshrouded the green-haired bat wings inside the secret room. Fang Yuan stood outside the door and lightly stamped his foot, calling, "Land Spirit. Master, Master, you called for me." Little Hu Immortal immediately appeared beside Fang Yuan, her eyes shining and her face carrying a joyful expression of being able to see her master. "I asked you to pay attention to the business in Treasure Yellow Heaven. How is it going?" Fang Yuan walked as he asked. Little Hu Immortal closely followed behind, replying, "Master had put the desolate beast corpses in Treasure Yellow Heaven for sale, but only one desolate beast corpse was sold over these days." Immortal Monkey King Shirley had already discovered Fang Yuan, thus, Fang Yuan might as well put these desolate beast corpses up for sale openly in Treasure Yellow Heaven. He had discussed matters with He Lu Lan. The two took what they needed first. Fang Yuan took the yellow jade lion and star demon bat wings while He Lu Lan took the flying bear corpse. Fang Yuan was put in charge of selling these beast corpses. No matter what the result was, he would have to give 40% of the earnings to He Lu Lan. He Lu Lan was also not afraid he would renege on his words. After all, there was the Snowy Mountain Alliance. Under normal circumstances, these desolate beast corpses would be popular goods that were quite rare. When they were put in Treasure Yellow Heaven, they would be sold within 4 to 6 hours and it was very easy to earn immortal essence stones. However, Fang Yuan did not want immortal essence stones this time. He arranged a will to express to other Gu immortals. To buy these beast corpses, they would have to exchange with specific goods. First of all was a method for immortal zombies to turn back to human, or any information and clues. Second was the Gu recipe for White Lotus Giant Silkworm Gu, the Gu worm itself, or corresponding information and clues. Third was the Wings of Bat Desolate Beasts. Fourth was top-tier mortal killer moves, the more outstanding they were, the better. Fifth was Bone Path Gu worms like Battle Bone Wheel that could be arranged to form the killer move, White Bone Chariot. Last was Wisdom Path inheritances or information and clues about them. Follow EW Stories at n/VELB/in.com. These 6 conditions were arranged in descending order according to Fang Yuan's needs. The ones listed first would be cheaper for the buyers when they purchased the beast corpses. Fang Yuan's Guts Gu business was extremely thriving right now. He did not lack immortal essence stones for the moment, thus he wanted to exchange them with goods. Because of this, the desolate beast corpses which were popular goods and easy to sell had become this hard to sell. 12 days had already passed in Hu immortal blessed land, but they only managed to sell 1 desolate beast corpse. Oh! What did that beast corpse exchange for? Fang Yuan asked excitedly. 1 whole chestnut yak was exchanged for a pair of bat desolate beast wings and an investigative killer move called 100 Li Eye. Little Hu immortal replied. Mortal killer moves normally would not exceed 6 immortal essence stones in Treasure Yellow Heaven. There were also detailed classifications between them. Mortal killer moves that sold for half an immortal essence stone were classified as bottom-tier goods, but they were better than nothing. Mortal killer moves that were worth 1 to 2 immortal essence stones were mediocre. They could provide some help to Gu immortals if used properly. For instance, the killer move Fang Yuan looked at before but did not buy, Spiral Drill Star Spear, was valued at 1 immortal essence stone. Star Lord Wanxiang Spring Star Rain was sold at 1.5 immortal essence stone. The Poison Breath killer move which Fairy Li Shan gave Fang Yuan could be sold for 2 immortal essence stones. Fang Yuan's previous defensive killer move Hair Armor was worth 2 immortal essence stones and was at the peak level of common mortal killer moves. Tai Bai Yun Sheng's defensive killer move 9 Cloud Ring could absorb enemies' attacks to a certain degree before counterattacking. It was valued at 2.5 immortal essence stones. Mortal killer moves worth 3 immortal essence stones were middle tier. They were reliable methods. For instance, Western Desert Gu immortal Plump Lady's killer move, Burial Dragon Sand Coffin, was valued at 3 immortal essence stones. Mortal killer moves worth 4 to 5 immortal essence stones had outstanding might and could not be looked down upon. They were considered as powerful methods that could often change the situation to a certain extent when they were used. Fang Yuan's Icy Drill Stardust had mixed in Do Min Jun's inheritance which raised its value to 4 immortal essence stones. The Lion Fur Armor which was an improved form of hair armor was valued at 4.5 immortal essence stones. And mortal killer moves that were worth 6 immortal essence stones were classified as top tier. Few could be bought in the market. Fang Yuan's reinvented movement killer move, True Solid Bat Wings, would have the effect of this tier if 3 pairs of bat wings were used. Killer moves were one of the 4 main factors that influenced a Gu immortal's battle strength. When Fang Yuan possessed Icy Drill Stardust, Hair Armor and Light Illusion Bat Wings, his battle strength had already reached the upper tier of rank 6 Gu immortals. In his previous life, before Fang Yuan self-detonated, he possessed more than a dozen mortal killer moves. Most of them were top-tier level killer moves worth 6 immortal essence stones. His battle strength had been at the peak of rank 6. However, when one reached rank 7, it was a different scene. The immortal killer moves that consumed green grape immortal essence became common methods. And those immortal killer moves that consumed red date immortal essence became uncommonly used, hidden trump cards. Most Gu immortals did not have immortal Gu. This was referring to rank 6 Gu immortals. Gu immortals that could cultivate to rank 7 were even fewer in numbers. They were the elites of elites, experts among experts of rank 6 who would have experienced innumerable tribulations and calamities, had excellent aptitude, temperament and accumulation. There was no way to justify them not having immortal Gu. With immortal Gu, there would be immortal killer moves. Immortal killer moves were evolved from using mortal killer moves as a foundation. Like Hei Lu Lan, who was trying to modify her strength path killer move to an immortal killer move. Often one immortal Gu can form different immortal killer moves according to the differences in mortal Gu. Thus, many Gu immortals would have offensive killer moves even if they did not have offensive immortal Gu. For instance, Fang Yuan's myriad self was an offensive killer move, but its core was cleanse soul immortal Gu, which was a support immortal Gu that helped Gu immortals in soul path cultivation. 100 Li I. After hearing little Hu immortals reply, Fang Yuan nodded and commented, "This mortal killer move is valued at 6 immortal essence stones. It allows the Gu immortal to observe the scenery within 100 li as clearly as the lines on one's palm." Good, I was lacking this kind of investigative killer move. But of course, the greatest satisfaction in this transaction is that I obtained another pair of desolate beast bat wings. He then asked, "Did any important things happen in the blessed land these recent days?" Little Hu Immortal shook her head and reported that everything was normal. Such tranquil days were very rare to Fang Yuan after his rebirth. However, Fang Yuan did not dare to slack even a little. Ever since he saw the external manifestation of a dream realm in his trip to Starry Sky Grotto Heaven, he felt a sense of urgency and could vaguely tell that the waves of the new era were coming. Over the next few days, Fang Yuan began to handle the newly obtained pair of bat wings. At the same time, he also arranged the old hairy men in the blessed land to refine Gu. The air sac Gu which could store guts Gu were naturally the main focus of the hairy men. Besides this, Fang Yuan divided the refinement procedures of group strength Gu and small family Qi Gu. He then separately taught the old hairy men and let them go through similar practice. These 2 Gu recipes could not be compared to others. They were ancient Gu recipes, their materials were rare and not easy to find in the present age. Thus, Fang Yuan first used other similar materials and Gu worms to raise the hairy men's proficiency. When their proficiency reached the level Fang Yuan was satisfied with, only then would he truly let them refine these 2 Gu. Fang Yuan's doctrine was to not raise idlers. Since he had already purchased the hairy men, he would try to squeeze every last bit of their worth. After 3 days in Hu Immortal Blessed Land, there was still no activity in Treasure Yellow Heaven. Fang Yuan had taken care of a small part of the newly obtained bat wings. But the wings of the star demon bat was still being incubated. Fang Yuan opened the door of the secret room and entered, standing in front of the green-haired bat wings. Right now, the green hair on the bat wings had already grown to be extremely thick and lush. Success or failure shall be determined at this moment. Fang Yuan used mortal Gu and with a snapping sound, a spark immediately was sent flying out. The spark flew to the green-haired bat wings, a soft sound echoed, the spark set the green hair aflame, forming a green fire. The fire appeared quickly and disappeared just as quickly. In a blink of an eye, the green hair on the bat wings floating in the air was already burnt off, revealing a pair of black bat wings. There were no small blue scales on the bat wings, instead they were replaced by a layer of thick ash. Fang Yuan showed a trace of disappointment, failure. He softly let out a breath of cloudy air, the weak breath touched the bat wings, this pair of bat wings fell down on the ground like charcoal and broke into pieces. The bat wings were filled with heavy injuries. Shirley had destroyed the star demon bat's wings first to kill it. The wings had thus suffered serious damage, the star demon bat could no longer display its advantage in flying, and was finally killed by Shirley. Fortunately, I have another pair of bat wings. Fang Yuan quickly got over the disappointment, and soon he was busy in the refining process. Chapter 733, Recognizing One's Own Ordinariness. With the previous refinement experience, this second attempt was much easier for Fang Yuan when refining the desolate beast bat wings. After over half a month in Hu Immortal Blessed Land, he transplanted this pair of desolate beast bat wings onto his back. In accordance with his usual practice, Fang Yuan still chose to retain the sense of pain in the bat wings. On this day, Fang Yuan was testing his killer moves on the top of Dang Hun Mountain. 100 Li I. He activated the killer move, his bright red pupils suddenly enlarged. He could see the grassland or debris within 100 li of his surroundings with extreme clarity, like they were in front of him. Outside of 100 li, his sight became blurry but was still much clearer than seeing with the naked eye. After 400 li, his line of sight reached the limit. It was all blurry and he could only distinguish some color and shadows. 100 li I is the base for 1000 li I. The latter is an immortal killer move and requires corresponding immortal Gu to be used. Fang Yuan nodded in satisfaction. This killer move was valued 6 immortal essence stones and it indeed had outstanding effect. It was just that the vision could not see through stealth or bypass obstacles. If any obstacles blocked the sight, the thing behind the obstacle could not be seen. This was the downside of 100 li I. Fang Yuan remembered both the merits and demerits, as he lightly flapped the wings on his back and flew to the sky. He continued to maintain 100 li I while flying, looking at the sky and ground with clear vision. Lion Fur Armor. He willed and activated the defensive killer move. Soon, his body was covered in a layer of bronze armor with a helmet resembling a lion's head. Even his wings were covered with a layer of thick plate, greatly raising its defense. But the speed, however, became slower. Lion fur armor and true solid bat wings cannot perfectly complement each other. Once I activate lion fur armor, true solid bat wings will have its speed reduced. If I don't use it, my speed might be fast but my defense will be lacking. Fang Yuan frowned. This problem surpassed the range of his capabilities. Geet the L. Test. Vels on no/v/elben.c/om. To create a movement killer move like lion fur armor, he had to balance the Tao marks of 3 paths and it was the limit of his master attainment realm in transformation path. Adding true solid bat wings on top of that was too difficult for Fang Yuan. If he had grandmaster attainment in transformation path, there was a possibility. But reaching grandmaster realm required large amounts of time and accumulation. This time was not only tens of years but could be 100 years or even several hundreds of years. Fang Yuan's highest attainment realms currently were Blood Path and Strength Path. Blood Path Grandmaster realm was achieved by Fang Yuan in his previous life after 200 to 300 years of deep accumulation. It could be seen how difficult it was to raise one's realm and accumulate their foundation. His Strength Path attainment was also at Grandmaster realm, and besides a small part of the accumulation being from his previous life, most was from obtaining Reckless Savage Demon Venerable's true meaning infusion. Otherwise, he would have required 200 or 300 years of accumulation to reach Grandmaster realm. At the Gu Immortal level, one had the strength to search and obtain lifespan Gu or other methods to prolong lifespan. Ordinary mortals had lifespans of 100 years. But as long as a Gu Immortal put some effort, they could live several hundreds of years or even 1,000 years. The long lifespans and time involved made the significance of accumulation even more heavy. Why were Fang Yuan and He Lu Lan not able to beat Immortal Monkey King Shirley? It was because after Shirley became a Gu Immortal, he relied on Combat Immortal Sect and had accumulated all sorts of experiences and insights for close to 300 years. Fang Yuan and He Lu Lan had only recently advanced to Gu Immortal. How could they compare to Shirley's 300 years of accumulation? It was normal for them to not be able to defeat him. If so, why did Fang Yuan and He Lu Lan have battle strength at the upper tier of rank 6 Gu Immortals when they advanced only recently? Fang Yuan relied on the gains found in 88 True Yang building, while He Lu Lan relied on her mother's inheritance as well as the help of her aunt, Fairy Li Shan. In other words, they had borrowed help from the accumulation of their predecessors. If I want my battle strength to improve drastically, just relying on myself to advance step by step would no doubt be a very long and inefficient process. In my previous life, when I walked on the blood path, I spent over 200 years before I was able to comprehend a dozen or so mortal killer moves and create hundreds of new blood path Gu. I naturally need to learn from this lesson. In this world, heroes emerge in large numbers and geniuses are everywhere. Stars and peaks have been shining constantly in the long history of time. If someone wants to stick out and move forward bravely, they can only take advantage of their predecessors' inheritances and accumulations, absorbing their essences. All rivers flow into the sea. By being able to gather the different specialties together, only then can one rise above the group and become a ruler of people, achieving supreme feats. Fang Yuan's gaze flickered as he flew around, sighing deeply in his heart. People often believed they were extraordinary when they were young, feeling they were the main characters of the stage. After they undergo some experiences, they would then realize and accept, many other people had talent not inferior to themselves. The saying goes, no matter how excellent you are, there is always someone more excellent than you. A person's lifespan was limited in the end, like a lone boat. Meanwhile, the mysteries and profound meanings of heaven and earth were equivalent to a vast, limitless body of water. Since ancient times, those who were in some sense able to reach the peak of heaven and earth numbered no more than 10. But even they could not reach the peak of all fields. Thus, even giant sun immortal venerable and thieving heaven demon venerable had to request for the help of long-hair ancestor in the Gu refinement aspect. There was a record in the legends of Renzu. Renzu started walking on the road of life, the surroundings were pure darkness and under his feet was dirty mud. Renzu asked Self Gu, "Where is this?" Self Gu replied, "This is the ordinary marsh in the lowest level of ordinary abyss." Renzu knew of ordinary abyss, his eldest son verdant great son had once been trapped inside. Renzu could not help but become excited, since this is the bottom of ordinary abyss, does that mean I have already left the door of life and death and returned to the living world? Does that mean I am now reborn? In a way, that is true. Self Gu said. But how is this possible? I have not passed Luopa Valley and have not charged through the reverse flow river. Renzu said in an incredulous tone. Self Gu said, "O human, you should know that you are talking about the path Fate Gu traveled. And this path you have walked on is a completely new path, a path created by you. Where this path goes is all decided by your own intentions. Like I said before, as long as you want to walk, there will be a road for you to step on." Renzu suddenly came to a realization, so it was like this. He then felt doubtful, then how did I walk to this place? Self Gu, humans are born ordinary. Although they are the spirit of all living beings, they do not have the claws of a tiger or the ability to absorb nutrients from the earth like plants, and also cannot transform like clouds and rain. You came to the ordinary marsh, what's strange about it? It is not only you, look at the mud under your feet carefully, you will see traces of many other footprints. Renzu lowered his head close to the ground before he was able to see clearly, like Self Gu said, ordinary marsh was filled with all kinds of marks. Claws prints of wild beasts, root imprints of vegetation, traces of water flowing and also traces of stones rolling past. How can there be so many marks? Renzu asked curiously. Self Gu replied, "This is ordinary abyss, all living beings will enter here due to various reasons. All living beings are ordinary. But the absolute majority of them will be trapped in ordinary abyss for all their lives. Only a small portion can leave ordinary abyss through their own efforts. I do not want to be trapped here for my entire life. There is nothing here, it is completely dark and the air stinks, I want to leave this place." Renzu frowned. Self Gu laughed loudly, "If you think that being ordinary is an abyss, then it is an abyss. But if you think that being ordinary is heaven, then it shall be heaven. Since you do not want to stay here, then leave, use your 2 legs to walk out of the ordinary marsh step by step and become extraordinary." Renzu took the first step. Suddenly, his body bent, his front leg was deeply embedded into the marsh. It was not easy to walk in the marsh, one step was deep, another was shallow. The path which looked almost uniform had some parts that were rather solid, while some were very loose. Renzu walked several steps when his eyes suddenly brightened as he thought of a trick. He purposely chose to walk on the spots which had the claw marks, since these spots could hold the marks, its soil texture was also much more solid. Thus, Renzu was able to walk very smoothly, almost like he was running when compared to his previous speed. He said with a burst of emotion, "So it turns out that in ordinary marsh, walking in the footsteps of predecessors is much faster than finding the way on your own." After testing true solid bat wings and lion fur armor, Fang Yuan descended onto a slope. Unfamiliar face. Fang Yuan activated this newly obtained mortal killer move. Almost all the Gu worms required for this killer move were essentially purchased from Treasure Yellow Heaven by Hu Immortal Land Spirit, while the last remaining portions were refined by the hairy men. Under the effect of the killer move, Fang Yuan's bat wings retracted, his 8 rough and thick arms also changed to 2. His sharp teeth were greatly shortened while his scarlet-red eyes also turned lighter. Finally, Fang Yuan's 6-meter-tall body shrunk back to a normal person's height with great changes to his appearance. It was only that his immortal zombie body was still an immortal zombie body, it could not be hidden. Despite this, Fang Yuan could not help but praise, "Wonderful. This is only a mortal killer move, but it is able to change my immortal body to this extent. Indeed worthy of being an invention of thieving heaven demon venerable." Fang Yuan could imagine that if he was still immortal, he could completely transform to any appearance, even changing to a woman perfectly. He now had an immortal body, his body was filled with strength path Dao marks. And as a mortal killer move, it was definitely not easy to alter his appearance to this extent. The main thing was that this transformation was not an illusion but a real transformation of his physical body, even involving subtle transformation of his aura. In short, even if Fang Yuan stood in front of Tai Bai Yunxing right now, the latter would not be able to recognize this immortal zombie was his own junior brother within a short period of time. "Master, your appearance became much better looking. Ah, this letter just came in." Right at this time, the land spirit, Little Hu Immortal, appeared while holding a letter Gu which she handed to Fang Yuan. Letter sending Green Bird Gu. Spirit Affinity House finally responded. Fang Yuan's gaze flashed as he took the letter Gu and sent in his consciousness. In a short while, he retracted his consciousness, a pondering expression flashed across his face. "Feng Jin Huang actually wants me to participate in the Refinement Path convention to compete in Refinement Path. I remember she had no interest in Refinement Path in her early years and her accumulation in this field could be said to be like a blank sheet of paper right now. So why does she have so much confidence to compete with me in Gu refinement? Could it be that she had already discovered the true use of Dream Wings Immortal Gu?" Fang Yuan's heart sank. Dream Wings, Dream Path. Fang Yuan's eyes turned cloudy as he recalled the details of his previous life. In his previous life, why did he gang up with a group of demonic Path Gu immortals to think of all sorts of ways to attack Hu Immortal Blessed Land? It was to kill Feng Jin Huang and seize Dream Wings Immortal Gu. Chapter 734, Two Great Events. To think that more than 400 years before the end of my previous life, dream realms had already shown up. Fang Yuan held the letter-sending Green Bird Gu in his hand as he sighed in his heart. At once, he lost the mood to test his killer moves. In Fang Yuan's previous life, Central Continent was the first to trigger the war, suppressing the other 4 regions single-handedly, and expanding rapidly. After that, the 4 regions collaborated, resisting Central Continent's invasion with much difficulty. The entire war had gone into a stalemate, and when the 4 regions joined hands and attempted to attack Central Continent in return, Dream Realms appeared in all 5 regions. In this world, ever since Ren Zhu produced the first batch of humans, humans began to dream. Every time they dreamed, they would expand the dream realms, providing strength to them. After countless days, a vast amount of time and changes, many heroes and geniuses rose up among humans, constantly expanding the dream realms. The dream realms got bigger and bigger, finally attaining a qualitative change and surfacing to the outside world. The people soon discovered that even though the environment of a dream realm was extreme and complex, dangerous and strange, it had great benefits. In dream realms, people could obtain the foundations of ancient people, allowing their cultivation realms to surge and improve rapidly. The rise of their attainment could be in terms of decades, a century, or even centuries of hard work. Because of dream realms, the attainments of Gu masters rose rapidly. This led to an increase in their strength, and produced many amazing experts. Previously, resources were held in the hands of clans and sects, attainment levels were hard to raise, and unless one was an incredible genius, they would not be able to rise up. After dream realms appeared, their attainment levels rose, like they were standing on the shoulders of former geniuses. Gu masters could recreate many Gu worms and killer moves, and on this basis, they could develop new Gu recipes, and new killer moves that were tailored to their abilities. That was the flourishing of a super-level great era. Many small forces lacking in prominence rose up, countless lone cultivators emerged. The appearance of dream realms devastated the rigid system and structures. Social order was in upheaval, the immense benefits made the people go wild. Originally, the four regions were collaborating to resist Central Continent, but before they even began, the plan was halted. All the different forces, countless Gu immortals and Gu masters, they all placed their attentions on dream realms. In order to compete for all of the surface dream realms, the 5 regions fought against each other, resulting in a thoroughly chaotic war. In order to explore the dream realm more efficiently, many knowledgeable people, talents and geniuses, produced the necessary Gu worms. Soon, the newly discovered dream path was rapidly formed and developed. The legendary rank 8 wisdom path Gu Immortal, Immortal Yi Yan's prophecy of 3 venerables, was brought up once again. He predicted that many years later, after 3 great eras, 3 venerables would appear, 2 men and 1 woman. The first was Spectral Soul Demon Venerable, second was Paradise Earth Immortal Venerable, and third was Great Dream Immortal Venerable. As for the problem regarding the space escape Gu, it would be solved by Great Dream Immortal Venerable. Spectral Soul Demon Venerable and Paradise Earth Immortal Venerable had already shown up. This made everyone believe in the prophecy more deeply. The two were linked together, forming a common theory. The dream realm was the opportunity to become Great Dream Immortal Venerable. Whoever can control the entire dream realm would be able to use the accumulations of past individuals to become a historical figure that transcends sages, a king among immortal kings, a venerable above venerables, Great Dream Immortal Venerable. In my previous life, the reason why I could rise up and become the lord of an area was not only because of my fortuitous encounter involving Blood Path, but also because of the 5 regions' chaotic war. All of the super forces had much lower control over the situation at that time, and because they were focused on exploring dream realms, they could not pay attention to the real-world situation, and that gave me the time and freedom to develop and grow. Unfortunately, by the time I had control in the real world, this new area known as Dream Realms had already been split up by all the huge forces. Even though I could enter Dream Realms and explore using Mortal Dream Path Gu, I was lagging behind everyone as a beginner. Unless I had a Dream Path Immortal Gu, that would be the only way to catch up. Precisely because of this, Fang Yuan gathered Song Zhong and other demonic Path Gu immortals to attack Hu Immortal Blessed Land, killing Feng Jin Huang. Unfortunately, he did not get her Dream Wings Immortal Gu. Lacking an Immortal Gu and only having Dream Path Mortal Gu, this caused Fang Yuan's exploration of dream realms to be without any important discoveries, while he was constantly chased away and suppressed by the large forces. Fang Yuan had obtained a Blood Path inheritance in his previous life. He was constantly chased after and had an arrest warrant on him. After building the Bloodwing Demon sect, he had spent a lot of effort managing his sect. It took away a lot of his time and effort. All in all, he missed the golden era of exploring dream realms. After rebirth, he had been reflecting upon this. This was a mistake, although mostly due to external pressure forcing him. A small part of it was due to his poor judgment. Thus, in this life, he remembered this lesson, and even though he had a foundation in Blood Path, he did not dare to cultivate Blood Path rashly before taking that crucial Blood Path inheritance. Blood Path Gu masters were hunted down like rats. Not only did the righteous path issue warrants to arrest them, even demonic path members were wary of them. Only during the 5 regions chaotic war, when law and order broke down, could Blood Path emerge and prosper at a time when nobody could afford to care about them. It turns out that dream realms surfaced more than 400 years earlier than the end of my previous life. All of the super forces had interactions with them long ago. Thus, in about 300 years, when dream realms surfaced extensively, these forces could enter and expand their influence. They were prepared since long ago. It was not my inability that I lost to them. At this point of time, Fang Yuan was still a mortal during his previous life, desperately living at the bottom level of Gu masters, restrained by his memories and experiences on Earth. Only after a long time did he break free of the limitations and shackles of such a mentality. Sometimes, the advantage of being a transmigrator can also be a disadvantage. This caused his information to deviate from what was happening in reality. For example, like Starry Sky Grotto Heaven. Star Constellation Immortal Zombie was 7-star Child Immortal Zombie. What Fang Yuan knew in his previous life was that this star constellation Immortal Zombie was a lucky person who had gained the most benefits inside the fragment worlds of Starry Sky Grotto Heaven. But the truth was, he was the owner of Starry Sky Grotto Heaven. The reason why he called himself Star Constellation Immortal Zombie was most likely because of Star Constellation Immortal Venerable's dream realm surfacing inside his grotto heaven. This resulted in 7-star Child obtaining some of Star Constellation Immortal Venerable's accumulation. This matter regarding 7-star Child is what originally happened. But Feng Jin Huang understanding the true usage of Dream Wing's Immortal Gu was much earlier than in my previous life. Was this the effect of me snatching Hu immortal blessed land from her? Fang Yuan thought. After Feng Jin Huang learned about the true effect of Dream Wing's Immortal Gu, Spirit Affinity House was sure to be alerted. And this in turn would affect the other 9 great ancient sects as well. And from the other 9 sects, the entirety of Central Continent would be affected. There is no wall in this world that can block all winds. In this way, the speed at which the people in this world learn about dream realms would be greatly pushed forward by me. Thinking of this, Fang Yuan felt a strong sense of urgency. Dream realms were an entirely new field. They were dangerous and complex. Even though there was only one type of resource in them, they were extremely profitable. Fang Yuan would not commit the same mistake from his previous life twice. However, in the current situation, dream realms would not surface on a large scale. Dream realms that have surfaced can be explored using Dream Path Mortal Gu. Those dream realms that have not surfaced can only be explored by using Dream Path Immortal Gu. Fang Yuan was extremely aware of the value of Dream Path Immortal Gu. But currently, with Fairy Bai Qing and Feng Jiugu around, even though Dream Wing's Immortal Gu was in the hands of Feng Jin Huang, a mortal, nobody dared to target her. Dream Travel was in the hands of the Northern Plains Gu Immortal, Lady Poison Scorpion. She lay dormant in Zi-Du Blessed Land, and was the first Gu Immortal who used Dream Travel to explore dream realms. In the future, she used the identity of a lone cultivator to become the 3rd overlord of dream realms. Lady Poison Scorpion was a rank 7 Gu Immortal. Her battle strength was even greater than Hei Cheng, and the defense of her blessed land was like an iron fortress. It was not easy to target her either. As for the other Dream Path Immortal Gu, they were either not created yet or had not appeared yet. Their origins were unknown. Fang Yuan thought about it for a while. He used his primeval essence and wiped away the details on the letter sending Green Bird Gu. using his thoughts to fill it with words of his own. He agreed to Feng Jin Huang's challenge, to have a competition during the Refinement Path Convention. Feng Jin Huang has Dream Wings Immortal Gu, she has confidence in herself. But my Refinement Path attainment has advanced from Master level to Quasi-Grandmaster level, why would I be afraid of this junior? Feng Yuan snorted in his heart. Deducing Immortal Gu recipes for Langya Land Spirit was an opportunity, it allowed his Refinement Path realm to reach a breakthrough recently. Refinement Path Convention, it concerns the infallible inheritance, such a grand event, even if Feng Jin Huang did not challenge me, I would have gone there to get a share of the rewards. However, joining the Refinement Path Convention will need me to prepare my own Gu refinement materials. If I want to have any gains, I will need to start collecting materials now. Feng Yuan had the experience of participating in the Refinement Path Convention from his previous life. Follow EW Stories at n/VELB/in.com. To get a good ranking, he would need to prepare a huge amount of materials, worth at least 500 immortal essence stones. A clever wife cannot cook without rice, even the best Gu recipe could not proceed without the relevant materials. Other than this, I have to attend the huge auction that Qin Bai Sheng is organizing with Fairy Li Shan as well. According to the newest information, this auction would have a segment for exchanging Immortal Gu. Immortal Gu could not be bought, commonly speaking, they could only be exchanged. When Gu immortals obtain Immortal Gu, they might not suit their own path. At this time, they would undergo exchange with other Gu immortals, to get an Immortal Gu that was suited for themselves, to display greater effect when used. Just like Feng Yuan's Worldly Wave Trace Immortal Gu, this was a Water Path Immortal Gu, the effect was much weaker when Feng Yuan used it as compared to a Water Path Gu Immortal. This was because Worldly Wave Trace Immortal Gu had the law of Water Path, meanwhile, Feng Yuan was a Strength Path Gu Immortal, his body was filled with Strength Path Dao marks, Strength Path and Water Path interfered with each other, reducing the normal capability of this Immortal Gu. During the 5 regions chaotic war in Feng Yuan's previous life, because battles were common, these Gu exchange sessions became much more frequent as well. But now was still a long time away from the war. This grand auction in Northern Plains would probably be the only large-scale Immortal Gu exchanging opportunity for the next 200 years. Feng Yuan naturally had to make use of it. Other than that, he was also very interested in the Luck Path inheritance. Auction and Refinement Path Convention, both of them need huge amounts of Immortal Essence stones. I have only 200 Immortal Essence stones on me now, I can barely join in either of the grand events. It seems I can only rely on Langya Land Spirit's idea of selling blessed lands of Gu immortals. Chapter 735, Finally Obtaining a Wisdom Path Inheritance. Even with the sale of Daoist Gu, it had been too short of a time period, Feng Yuan had not accumulated enough Immortal Essence stones yet. Furthermore, he had been refining Gu and tempering his bat wings, all these expenses caused his accumulation of wealth to be very slow. The Auction and Refinement Path Convention were 2 huge events, they would be held one after another. The former was already right around the corner. The only way to obtain a huge amount of Immortal Essence stones now would be through the Gu Immortals' blessed lands in Langya Land Spirit's possession. It is a pity that my immortal aperture is dead, I cannot swallow other blessed lands. Otherwise, the first person to buy the blessed lands would be me. Feng Yuan sighed in his mind. The immortal apertures were small worlds, they could swallow each other, but there were requirements. Firstly, dead apertures could not swallow apertures, they could only break down constantly until they vanish completely. Secondly, a smaller immortal aperture could not swallow a bigger one. Lastly, to swallow a rank 6 blessed land, one needed Master Attainment Realm, to fuse the 2 different worlds together without problems. To devour a rank 7 blessed land, Grandmaster Attainment Realm is needed. To swallow a rank 8 Grotto Heaven, Great Grandmaster Realm is needed. That is to say, If Fang Yuan wanted to swallow immortal apertures, he would first need to become alive again, making his blessed land regain life force. Secondly, he could only devour strength path, refinement path, enslavement path, and transformation path blessed lands. Although strength path and blood path were at Grandmaster attainment realm, he was only rank 6 and could only devour rank 6 blessed lands. But even with such limitations, Gu immortals were never hesitant towards blessed lands they could swallow. The immortal aperture was the base and foundation of a Gu immortal's cultivation. Swallowing blessed lands was like taking someone else's foundation, it caused one's own cultivation level to surge extremely quickly. As long as one was a Gu immortal, they would know the value of the blessed land. Regarding the auction of blessed lands, it was sure to whip up a huge storm during the auction. In the following days, Fang Yuan refined group strength Gu and small family Qi Gu, while using the light of wisdom to try and improve the transformation path killer move unfamiliar face. At the same time, he was still continuing to sell desolate beast corpses in treasure yellow heaven. Half a month had passed in Hu immortal blessed land, the sole rank 7 corpse in Fang Yuan's possession, astral wind flying heavenly boar, was successfully sold. Fang Yuan obtained a wisdom path inheritance that he had been wanting since a long time ago. Malicious thought Gu. A few days later, Fang Yuan held a rank 5 mortal Gu in his hands with a complex expression. This malicious thought Gu was refined by him using the Gu recipe in the wisdom path inheritance. It had a huge body, around the size of a washing basin. It was like a spider, but the 8 legs were like needles, the tips were extremely sharp. On the body of the spider, there was tough and long prickly hairs. If not for Fang Yuan's immortal zombie body, ordinary flesh and blood would bleed upon touching this Gu. Fang Yuan injected primeval essence, and malicious thoughts appeared in his mind one after another. These malicious thoughts were like bubbles with sharp spikes on the surface. Fang Yuan tried to use these malicious thoughts, as they started to collide into each other instantly. The scene of their collision was very peculiar. The bubbles had spikes, they hooked up to one another, before getting destroyed or fusing into even bigger thoughts after that. Soon, these malicious thoughts were consumed. Fang Yuan opened his eyes, showing some joy in his gaze. Even for wisdom path Gu immortals, their main method for deduction is to use thoughts. When using malicious thoughts to scheme or plot against others, the effect would be much greater. In that case, one malicious thought could be equivalent to tens of joyful thoughts, star thoughts, or empty thoughts. Fang Yuan had used delight in water and mountain immortal Gu to create a huge amount of joyful will in the past to assist his thinking. That was a wrong move. Although wills were made of thoughts, their real use was not for thinking, but to act independently after splitting from the main body. Gu immortals create many different wills, sending them into treasure yellow heaven to sell items. Giant Sun immortal venerables will was left behind to defend 88 True Yang building. This was the real use of wills. To make a comparison, thoughts were like cleavers, while wills were like sabers. When thinking about how to cut vegetables, one would obviously use a cleaver, which chef would choose to use a saber for that. Different professions are like separate worlds. Wisdom path was the most mysterious path. Fang Yuan did not know this in the past, thus he used joyful will to think. The effect seemed reasonable, but he had, in fact, resulted in much expenditure. He was better off using joyful thoughts. I now have the Gu recipes of malicious thought Gu and malicious will Gu. I can mass produce these 2 mortal Gu. As an immortal, I have unlimited primeval essence. Activating a huge number of malicious thoughts would be the best value for me. Expending green grape immortal essence to activating delight in water and mountain immortal Gu is simply too expensive. In the past, Fang Yuan only had a small number of wisdom path mortal Gu in his possession, most of them were bought in treasure yellow heaven. The thoughts produced when using these mortal Gu were simply too few, and they varied in types. They could not sustain the expenditure when deducing immortal Gu recipes. Thus, he had to use delight in water and mountain immortal Gu. But now that Fang Yuan had the Gu recipes for wisdom path mortal Gu, his first plan was to mass-produce these mortal Gu. The thoughts produced by one mortal Gu were few, but with enough quantity, the numbers of the thoughts would be very significant. Activating delight in water and mountain immortal Gu was not only expensive, it was a waste of a precious resource. It is a pity that this wisdom path inheritance appeared a little late. I have already entered the next stage in my transaction with Xianxia land spirit. If this appeared earlier, I would have been able to save a huge amount of green grape immortal essence. After saving green grape immortal essence, my costs would fall, the profits from each deal would increase, and it would definitely not be 26 immortal essence stones like before. Fang Yuan thought of this and felt a little regret. He could not help it, life is like this. Not everything would happen at the exact time you needed it to, life did not go so smoothly. It was bound to include imperfection, dissatisfaction, and untimely events. Like the wisdom path inheritance that Fang Yuan obtained, it was not complete, it was quite lacking. All in all, it was already a very fortunate thing that Fang Yuan could obtain the mortal Gu recipes of malicious thought Gu and malicious will Gu. Other than these two Gu recipes, he also obtained a wisdom path killer move, called harboring malicious heart. The Gu immortal who sold the Gu recipe seemed to have a great need for the astral wind flying heavenly boar's corpse, and it seemed that he was a bit tight on finances as well. If not for that, even if an ancient desolate beast's corpse was worth several hundred immortal essence stones, he would not have sold the wisdom path inheritance. Even if this wisdom path inheritance was not complete, it was still very rare in the market. Thus, in the following days, Fang Yuan stayed in Hu immortal blessed land peacefully and refined malicious thought Gu non-stop. Even though malicious thought Gu is not a consumable Gu, it is still a mortal Gu, it has limits. Even though my primeval essence is unlimited, if I activate it too many times, after a while, these malicious thought Gu would be damaged. With that in mind, Fang Yuan knew that his need for malicious thought Gu would be kept at a certain level in the future. But the refinement of Gu would always take a long time. The higher the rank of the Gu worm, the longer the time it would take. Gu immortals often spend decades, a century, or even centuries to refine one immortal Gu. Thinking of this, Fang Yuan decided to put in a large investment and purchase hairy men. During this time, he had sold more batches of Guts Gu, each batch earned him 48 immortal essence stones of profit. He only kept 50 immortal essence stones, he spent the rest to purchase hairy men without restraint. This caused the price of hairy men in Treasure Yellow Heaven to surge for a brief period of time. Fang Yuan wanted the hairy men inside Xianxia blessed land the most. These hairy men were not only well trained, they were also much better in quality than those in Treasure Yellow Heaven, but after he asked Xianxia land spirit, he was sternly rejected. Not only that, Xianxia land spirit scolded him fiercely and said that Fang Yuan was not being a good friend. Although Fang Yuan was scolded, he was happy. Xianxia land spirit saying he was not being a good friend meant that Xianxia land spirit acknowledged him as a friend already, even though their friendship could not compare with Xianxia land spirit and Inkman King Mo Tan Sang's relationship. However, Mo Tan Sang and Xianxia land spirit's friendship had not started in this generation, it began with a former city lord long ago in Inkman City. After countless generations, Inkman City had been maintaining this relationship with Xianxia land spirit secretly. This friendship had accumulated to an immense amount through time. Xianxia land spirit has just been released, and has obtained so many completed immortal Gu recipes. According to his temperament, he is definitely going to refine immortal Gu. But refining immortal Gu requires a vast amount of resources, even the affluent and rich Xianxia blessed land cannot sustain such costs. Gu immortals cannot enter Treasure Yellow Heaven physically, after this auction, he would have no chance to sell them. If he wants to sell the Gu immortals' blessed lands, then to him, it is an urgent matter as well. Fang Yuan knew that Xianxia land spirit was already anxious deep down. When he loses his cool, he would find Fang Yuan personally. Langya Lan's spirit's connections were too shallow, he only had Mo Tan Sang. But Mo Tan Sang had Inkman City to take care of, and he was a variant human, he had lots of restraints, how could he appear personally to sell these Gu immortals' blessed lands? The status of variant humans was lower than normal humans. The same applied to variant human Gu immortals. Seeing that the variant human Gu immortal was selling human Gu immortals, it would ignite the animosity of the human Gu immortals against a common enemy. That is to say, other than finding Fang Yuan, Langya Lan's spirit had no other candidates. This was really not his fault, after all, a land spirit could not leave the blessed land. Furthermore, Langya blessed land was a land of treasures, it was filled with wealth and would draw out people's greed, since blessed lands could be swallowed, it was Langya Land's spirit's method of self-preservation to have minimal contact with Gu immortals. Langya Land's spirit was internally anxious, this made Fang Yuan much less anxious about it. For the next 2 months, Fang Yuan stayed in Hu immortal blessed land, building another Fang Yuan stone nest, and also filling up all of the rooms in the stone nests with hairy men. These hairy men were quite skilled in refining Gu, they were the higher quality goods in treasure yellow heaven. High-grade hairy man slaves, even though Fang Yuan could buy them, they were low in numbers. When Fang Yuan bought this group of hairy men, he not only needed to care about the quality, but also have sufficient quantity. With the second stone nest, the production of air sac Gu would increase, which meant that the production and sales of guts Gu would also increase. Each time Fang Yuan made a transaction, he would earn more immortal essence stones. But Fang Yuan did not order all of the hairy men to refine air sac Gu for now. The second stone nest was meant to refine malicious thought Gu. Chapter 736, What a huge transaction. If malicious thought Gu were used to replace delight in water and mountain immortal Gu, the quantity of the former would definitely have to be enormous. Fang Yuan needed a lot of malicious thought Gu and not just several hundreds of them. He made an initial estimation that he required at least 2,000, by simultaneously activating them, the amount of malicious thoughts they produced could barely be sufficient for use under the light of wisdom. Most importantly, these 2,000 malicious thought Gu must be rank 5. Fang Yuan had the recipes of rank 1 to rank 5 malicious thought Gu. Rank 1 to rank 5 malicious thought Gu had similar effects in producing malicious thoughts. The only differences were the amount of thoughts they could produce in one activation and the vast difference in the quantity of primeval essence they consumed. Gu refinement is not easy, the higher the rank, the more difficult it is to refine. Especially rank 5 malicious thought Gu, which cannot be obtained immediately but requires the refinement to be one step at a time, from rank 1 to rank 2 to rank 3 and so on. This means, in addition to a low success rate, the amount of resources consumed will be extremely large. Fang Yuan's initial plan was to first refine 2,000 malicious thought Gu. As for malicious will Gu, he did not need it at the moment, as he still had a lot of joyful will left in his mind. Refining 2,000 rank 5 malicious thought Gu was no doubt an enormously time-consuming project. If Fang Yuan had not purchased hairy men and built the second stone nest, the hairy men in the first stone nest could only take on this project and there was spare time from refining air sac Gu. This meant they would at least need 10 years of time to reach the target of 2,000 rank 5 malicious thought Gu. Now, Fang Yuan had the second stone nest and large numbers of hairy men, this time period was greatly shortened to about 16 months. If I can improve the Gu recipe within this time and think of a completely new rank 5 Gu recipe that can directly refine rank 5 malicious thought Gu, then the 16 months will be further reduced greatly. Fang Yuan thought inwardly. His refinement path realm had already advanced to quasi-grandmaster, but he had almost no foundation in wisdom path. However, he still had confidence. The source of this confidence was none other than wisdom Gu. Relying on the light of wisdom, he could get endless inspiration. Even if his attainment level was lacking, it was not of much concern and he could forcibly make deductions. The might of rank 9 Immortal Gu is indeed extremely terrifying. Fang Yuan was becoming increasingly aware of the power of rank 9 Wisdom Gu. Using the light of wisdom, he could deduce Immortal Gu recipes. And these Immortal Gu recipes had perplexed even the quasi-great Grandmaster Langya Land Spirit, unable to make progress. Fang Yuan could also use the light of wisdom to deduce immortal killer moves. Vicious Lightning Fiend comprehended the immortal killer move Lightning Deity from a remnant recipe of Blood Deity, after using up several years of time in closed cultivation. If it were Fang Yuan and he possessed the corresponding Lightning Path attainment, using the Wisdom Gu, he would require at most a month to accomplish this. Hei Lu Lan was currently trying her best to advance her mortal killer move, Self-Strength Phantom, to an immortal killer move. Unfortunately, even if she had the foundation of a mortal killer move and the strength path attainment level, she would require at least years of time to reach her target. Were it Fang Yuan, he could probably accomplish this in half a month. In actual fact, Fang Yuan had been intermittently deducing immortal killer moves. The immortal killer move he was deducing was none other than Myriad Self. Myriad Self's core was Cleanse Soul Immortal Gu, but because it was starving, it could not be used. Fang Yuan's main goal in deducing Myriad Self was to replace Cleanse Soul Immortal Gu with other Gu worms. Unfortunately, once this Soul Immortal Gu was gone, the power of the killer move greatly fell. Even if he used a lot more Mortal Gu, it could not reach the original might. In the long history of Gu Masters, since ancient times till now, there was only one mortal killer move that had the offensive power of an immortal Gu. That was White Bone Chariot. This killer move came from Proud Bone Demon Lord Xianxia. It was a peerless creation standing high above in both ancient and present times. Thus, Fang Yuan had listed as one of the exchange conditions for buying a Desolate Beast Corpse in Treasure Yellow Heaven, to use a Desolate Beast Corpse to exchange for rank 5 Bone Path Mortal Gu like Battle Bone Wheel. Battle Bone Wheel was one of the Mortal Gu required to form the White Bone Chariot killer move. Fang Yuan only had one of it, which he obtained from the battlefield where Wolf King Chang Shan Yin had hidden himself in northern plains. Fang Yuan's talent could not match Xianxia. If he got rid of Cleanse Soul Immortal Gu, Myriad Self would simply not have enough power. Over the next half of a month, Fang Yuan tried hard to improve Malicious Thought Gu's recipe, and besides this, he also did not give up in improving his immortal killer move Myriad Self. In this time period, he sold another 2 Desolate Beast Corpses in Treasure Yellow Heaven. He exchanged them for the second pair of Bat Desolate Beast Wings as well as dozens of Immortal Essence Stones. Fang Yuan had not wanted to use Desolate Beast Corpses to exchange for Immortal Essence Stones. But he only had 50 Immortal Essence Stones remaining on him, as most of his wealth had been used to purchase hairy men. Now, he was refining rank 5 Malicious Thought Gu on a large scale, which required extremely great resources. Thus, he had no choice but to exchange for Immortal Essence Stones in order to barely be able to cope with his expenses. With this, Fang Yuan only had 3 Desolate Beast Corpses remaining on sale in Treasure Yellow Heaven. The Immortal Essence Stones on him also reached a number of just over 20. And since he was constantly making deductions, his Green Grape Immortal Essence also fell down to 36 beads. Fortunately, Fang Yuan's plan of improving Malicious Thought Gu's recipe succeeded. It was a completely new Malicious Thought Gu recipe. Although it did not reach his previous expectations, it already was reduced by a number of steps. Previously, the rank 5 Malicious Thought Gu could only be refined step by step from rank 1 to rank 2 and so on. Now, the rank 5 Malicious Thought Gu only required 2 steps. The first step refined a half-finished Malicious Thought Gu, while the second step completed the refinement. Although the success rate did not improve, the procedure had shortened, the materials required decreased by a lot, and time was also saved. According to this speed, the estimated 16 months has been directly reduced by half. I will have 2000 rank 5 Malicious Thought Gu in just 8 months. However, I am already tight on immortal essence stones. At this rate, even with the support from the transaction of Daoist Gu, I won't be able to make my ends meet. Do I have to slow down for the moment and let the second stone nest refine Airsac Gu, raising the production of Daoist Gu to earn immortal essence stones? Just as Fang Yuan was having this thought, the good news he had been waiting a long time for had finally arrived. Brat, you win. I agree to your condition. We will split in a 4-to-6 ratio. Langya Land Spirit said furiously, his emotions in a mess. Fang Yuan lacked money to refine mortal Gu on a large scale, while Langya Land Spirit was refining immortal Gu. The resources he had to expend amounted to more than 100 times what Fang Yuan required, so he lacked money even more so. Just like Fang Yuan expected, Langya Land Spirit did not have other channels and only had Fang Yuan to accomplish this task. Thus, he had no choice but to accept, even though he knew this was an extremely large loss. Fang Yuan also did not want to push his luck, such a sharing of profits was already the limit of the Land Spirit. If he did not accept this and angered Langya Land Spirit, there would not only be no transaction, even the relationship he had built with much difficulty would collapse. Northern Plains, by Zhu Grotto Heaven. The hall was lit with bright lights, beautiful women were dancing without rest, fine wine and delicacies were presented at the table in a row. Eat this, I personally like this dish very much, it is made of the rank 5 Gu, flying Vajra centipedes, which are roasted over a charcoal fire, making its flesh delicious and tender. Heavenly Lord Baizu said with light laughter from the main seat, inviting the 2 Gu immortals in the hall. The 2 Gu immortals were none other than Qin Baisheng and Fairy Li Shan. Although the dishes were made by others, the 2 immortals had no misgivings. Qin Baisheng picked up a long piece of meat and threw it in his mouth. He chewed it loudly, his lips shone with oily luster. He raised his thumb in praise, indeed a delicacy. Not bad, not bad. Heavenly Lord Baizu laughed loudly before looking at Fairy Li Shan, I wonder how Fairy finds it. Fairy Li Shan's eating manner was much more elegant than Qin Baisheng, she took a few bites then appreciated the taste before smiling, it is delicious, not only is there the smell of coal, there is also a nice chewy taste with a creamy and refreshing texture. It truly is a masterpiece. Heavenly Lord Baizu laughed heartily with extreme satisfaction, I won't conceal it from you too, I thought painstakingly and tested for 8 days and 8 nights to create this dish. This is one of my most satisfying works during this year. Heavenly Lord Baizu was a rank 8 Gu immortal and a lone cultivator. He had a hobby which was famous throughout the world of Northern Plains Gu immortals, he liked to cook gourmet food and create new fine dishes. In this visit, we not only succeeded in inviting Heavenly Lord to participate in the auction, but also tasted such a delicacy, it is truly our honor. Qin Baisheng spoke at an appropriate time. I shall engrave Heavenly Lord's hospitality in my heart. Now, we have already signed an alliance treaty, please forgive Li Shan for not being able to stay longer. Fairy Li Shan said. He. Heavenly Lord Baizu nodded while all smiles, good. There are only a few rank 8 seniors in Northern Plains. You two have already invited me, as well as Yao Huang, 5 Elements Grandmaster and Old Ancestor Shui Hu. If only Prince Feng Xian is left out, it won't be good. Heavenly Lord has penetrating insight, we were going to invite Prince Feng Xian. Go. Organize this auction properly, this old man has great expectations. Qin Baisheng and Fairy Li Shan left Baizu Grotto Heaven, then hurried towards the southeast direction. Midway, Fairy Li Shan's expression suddenly changed. In her immortal aperture, Fang Yuan's message had arrived through moving perspective cup Gu. Fairy Li Shan slowly came to a halt. Qin Baisheng asked curiously, Fairy, why are you stopping? Fairy Li Shan gave a light smile, there is a person I want to introduce to you. Qin Baisheng's interest rose. At this moment, Fang Yuan came out of Fairy Li Shan's immortal aperture. He quickly scanned his surroundings before looking at Qin Baisheng. Lord Qin, your mighty name has long since resounded in my ears. Qin Baisheng was a rank 7 Gu immortal with outstanding battle strength at the level of Shirley. Right now, as he saw Fang Yuan was only an immortal zombie with the lowest cultivation of rank 6, his interest that had been roused just before rapidly disappeared. Follow EW Stories at n/VELB/in.com. However, remembering Fang Yuan had directly come out of Fairy Li Shan's immortal aperture, it could be seen that Fang Yuan's relationship with Fairy Li Shan was not shallow. Qin Baisheng did not become arrogant, and only nodded and smiled lightly. You flatter me, you are. My name is Sha Huang. I have a large transaction that I want to discuss with Lord Qin. Fang Yuan smiled. What large transaction? When Fang Yuan spoke of the matter of selling Gu Immortal's blessed lands, Qin Baisheng and Fairy Li Shan both turned pale. In the letter from the moving perspective Cup Gu, Fang Yuan had not explained things clearly and only said he wanted to participate in the auction. Fairy Li Shan was endlessly shocked. Sha Huang, you really have blessed lands of Gu Immortals to sell. Ha, they are not mine, I am only running an errand. Fang Yuan smiled. He and Fairy Li Shan were under the Snowy Mountain Alliance, so he must speak the truth. However, this indeed was the truth, just that he had only said part of it. He naturally would not say that he, this errand boy, had more of a share of the profits than the owner. Qin Baisheng's mood calmed down only then, as he deduced that Fang Yuan was a subordinate of some great person. In the open, Northern Plains had 5 rank 8 Gu immortals, but it was rumored there were some old monsters who were apparently still alive. Immediately, Qin Baisheng re-evaluated Fang Yuan. He was still smiling, but his tone had a slight change now. It is indeed a huge transaction. Brother, since you think highly of me and have confidence in this auction, then how could I refuse? Many thanks to Lord Qin for making an exception. Fang Yuan's smile turned even bigger. What exception? Honestly speaking, I am just glad it was not too late. Gu Immortal's blessed lands, TSK, this will definitely heighten the climax of the auction. This auction I am holding will definitely be one of the few grand auctions over several hundred years in Northern Plains. Qin Baisheng laughed loudly and passionately patted this small rank 6 immortal zombie, Fang Yuan's shoulder. Honestly, I am a boorish person. Lord Qin is a strange way to address me, brother. If you think I am worthy, then even if I am older by some years, how about calling me brother? Qin Baisheng was already over 700 years old. He was indeed older than Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan directly cupped his fists with a smile. Brother Qin. Brother Sha. Qin Baisheng returned the greeting. Chapter 737, Joining Zombie Alliance. Qin Baisheng was quite the character. His battle strength was on par with immortal Monkey King Shirley, but he did not have any arrogant attitude. Not only that, when he conversed with Fang Yuan, he kept a cool demeanor and was very amicable. Not only did he laugh grandly, he even gave people a feeling that he was very open-minded. This time, Fang Yuan had obviously appeared under the disguise of the mortal killer move unfamiliar face. He had to conceal himself. Ma Hongyun and Zhao Yenyun were in the hands of Qin Baisheng. If they had revealed the details or had their souls searched, Qin Baisheng would have known about Fang Yuan's 8-armed heavenly zombie form already. Be it He Lulan, Tai Bai Yunsheng or Fang Yuan's 8-armed heavenly zombie figure, they could not appear openly in Northern Plains. Because the 3 of them were key surviving members of the 88 True Yang building incident. Right now was a sensitive time. Ever since Northern Plains' #1 Wisdom Path Gu Immortal, Dong Fang Chang Fan, deduced before his death that the culprit was not a person from Northern Plains and was an outsider, Northern Plains had formed an attitude of resisting a common enemy. Countless forces and experts wanted to take revenge. Especially the 10 or so super forces in northern plains, their benefits were heavily affected. They wanted to slaughter the culprit, to chop them into pieces and slice their skin and bones, to torture them for endless years to appease their hatred. Once Fang Yuan and the others showed up, even if their crimes were not exposed, it would sure to stir great attention, and Northern Plains Gu immortals would immediately make their moves, wanting to use Fang Yuan and the others as the key to obtaining more inside information. Thus, Fang Yuan came here using the fake name of Sha Huang. At the same time, his 8 monstrous arms turned into ordinary zombie shoulders, his terrifying 6-meter-tall body had turned into that of a normal person's build, or even shorter. The fangs in his mouth were also completely retracted, he no longer looked ruthless but instead gave off a weak and powerless feeling. Of course, Fang Yuan had informed Fairy Li Shan already regarding his disguise in his letter. When they established the Snowy Mountain Alliance earlier, they had considered such a situation, thus, this was Fairy Li Shan and Fang Yuan collaborating to deceive outsiders, he did not go against their agreement at all. But even if Fang Yuan was so insignificant, an immortal zombie with stale cultivation and a grim future, Qin Baixing did not look down on him at all. He talked with Fang Yuan on equal terms, in fact when they conversed, he spoke with an affectionate tone. Qin Baixing's attitude made Fang Yuan praise him inwardly. This person is really quite a character, no wonder he could turn this around and forcefully change this situation of being attacked by Northern Plains Gu immortals to one that benefits him greatly. Qin Baixing was also thinking, this small rank 6 immortal zombie has an ordinary appearance, but even after I probed him for so long, he has not slipped and exposed anything. Even now, I do not know his origin and background, while he can still talk to me, Qin Baixing, calmly and normally, he is not simple, not simple. Fairy Li Shan was at the side, squinting as she smiled, watching Fang Yuan and Qin Baixing talk. Fairy Li Shan saw that they were talking with more enthusiasm as she laughed lightly. The way you two are talking, it is a shame that you have only met now, you actually left me in a corner, you look like long-lost brothers who had just met each other. Follow the latest novels. n/velbin.com. I am ashamed. Fang Yuan quickly said. Qin Baixing heard this and his eyes brightened up. Fairy said it well, that was fabulous. Brother Sha and I feel like old friends, we really hit it off, why don't we become sworn brothers? With Fairy's Mountain Pledge Gu, from now on, as long as I have meat to eat, I will not let little brother starve. Fairy Li Shan was shocked, she did not expect Qin Baixing to be serious. After the shock, she flustered, is Qin Baixing's discernment superior to mine? He has already seen through Fang Yuan's disguise. Fang Yuan gasped, immediately showing an expression like that of a youngster with poorly concealed temptation, I am not worthy, I am not worthy. Oh, what is brother saying, there is no such thing as worthiness. This is fate. Unless, even though brother is showing this on the surface, you actually look down on me, a person without a force. Qin Baixing's eyes shined brightly, he looked at Fang Yuan tightly, showing a half-smiling expression. Oh no, my unfamiliar face is only a mortal killer move, Qin Baixing has felt something amiss already. It boils down to the excessive strength that I displayed, I actually had Gu immortal prisoners and was going to sell Gu immortals blessed lands. Although Qin Baixing is a lone cultivator, he is skilled at gathering allied forces and is organizing an auction, thus he wants to use me to latch onto the force behind me. Of course, there is a possibility that he suspects that I am the culprit who toppled 88 Truyang building. No matter which one it is, I can see the troublesome and powerful methods of this person. These thoughts flashed by in Fang Yuan's head quickly, as he gave a bitter smile, to speak the truth, I really hit it off with brother Qin, but I am a small character, I cannot decide this, I am not like brother Qin and Fairy Li Shan who are free. The matter of becoming sworn brothers, it is not that I do not want to, but I cannot. Of course they could not, once they did, making an oath before the Mountain Pledge Gu, Fang Yuan would be at his mercy. The most simple way was for Qin Baisheng to suggest that brothers cannot lie to each other. What can Fang Yuan do then? How could he reject him? So that is the case. Brother has his difficulties, I understand. Not only do I understand, I can even help you, brother. Qin Baisheng patted his chest. While speaking, he still continued to try probing Fang Yuan's background. Fang Yuan cupped his fists to thank him, before turning around and looking at Fairy Li Shan. Fairy, I came here this time with another task, that is to borrow and make use of your mountain pledge Gu. This. Fairy Li Shan looked at Qin Baisheng, hesitatingly saying, Sha Huang, you might not know, but we are going to find Prince Feng Xian to invite him to attend the auction. Our time is tight, I am not sure if Prince Feng Xian will be angry. After all, he is the last person we are visiting. Qin Baisheng said instead, Prince Feng Xian is a model of the righteous path, how can he be so small-minded? Anyway, we are going to take some time in flying there, it is not a problem to lend it to brother Sha Huang. It's fine, I am not in a rush. Fang Yuan cupped his fist, in that case, Fairy and brother Qin should go first, we will split up here. Why doesn't brother Sha Huang come with us? It is a rare opportunity to be able to meet Prince Feng Xian. Qin Baisheng invited. How could Fang Yuan dare to go to a rank 8 Gu immortal? Especially when this Prince Feng Xian had an investigative immortal Gu that was at least rank 7. Even though unfamiliar face came from thieving heaven demon venerable, it was just a mortal killer move, in front of an investigative immortal Gu, it was insufficient. Fang Yuan rejected Qin Baisheng's invitation and watched them fly away, as their figures vanished into the sky, his expression turned cold. He had finally learned how troublesome Qin Baisheng was to deal with. Compared to the brutish Shirley, this person had an exquisite mind, who knew how many thoughts were in his head, while he could appear on the surface to be grand and full of passion, as if it came from the bottom of his heart. Just this acting ability alone was on par with Fang Yuan. If not for Fang Yuan being a reborn old monster, he might not be able to see Qin Baisheng's true colors. This person is a lone cultivator, yet he was able to make a network of alliances and influence the entire world of Northern Plains Gu immortals. His methods were truly incredible, he has some real skill. Unfortunately, his luck in my previous life was bad. Just when Blood Hunter came out of seclusion, he unfortunately met with and engaged in fierce battle, succumbing to that monster's methods. Fang Yuan recalled as he turned around, flying towards another direction. Not long later, he met with a group of azure ostriches. This bird had a swollen back, like that of a camel, it had azure feathers and its body was as strong as a grown man. Often gathering in groups, they were the overlords of the sky. This group of azure ostriches were not few in numbers, they were a myriad beast group. Fang Yuan did not care about them, he continued to fly forwards. The azure ostriches found the prey Fang Yuan and were very excited, they first screeched before getting close to him, but the moment they got close to him and sensed his immortal zombie aura, they ran away in fear. All living beings had survival instincts in them to avoid danger, even beasts and birds had this insight and would not send themselves to death. If this had been Fang Yuan when he stepped into Northern Plains for the first time in his previous life, if he met the azure ostrich group, he would need to dig a hole and bury himself to avoid them. But now, even without doing anything, he had chased this group of azure ostriches away. Even though I became an immortal zombie, compared to my previous life's achievements, my cultivation level has greatly exceeded what I had been during this time. In my previous life, at this point, Qin Mao Mountain had been destroyed by Ning Bing's self-detonation, because clans are united by bloodline, they spurn outsiders. Before I became a lone demonic cultivator, I joined a caravan and was often at the front lines, trying to earn a living like this. In his previous life, Fang Yuan had moved around southern border, western desert, eastern sea for over 300 years before becoming a rank 5 Gu master in central continent. But now, only decades had passed and Fang Yuan was already an immortal, even though he was an immortal zombie, his battle strength was already upper tier among rank 6 Gu immortals. Firstly, the rebirth advantage he had was huge. Secondly, Fang Yuan took part in many dangerous situations, the higher the risks, the greater his rewards. But as time passes, the influence of my rebirth would become bigger and bigger. This auction had never happened in my previous life. Hopefully, when I join Northern Plains Zombie Alliance this time, there will be fewer accidents and my plans would go smoothly. Having unfamiliar face, Fang Yuan decided to try joining Zombie Alliance. Plans could not keep up with changes. His original plan was to first take Dark Limit Immortal Gu. But Xue Songzi and He Cheng's incident had inadvertently served as an alert. Afterwards, Fairy Jiang Yu had disappeared mysteriously, even Fairy Li Shan could not find her. He also had another plan, to kill Ma Hongyun and Zhao Lianyun. But now that they were captured by Qin Baisheng, they were watched by almost all of the Gu immortals in Northern Plains. How could Fang Yuan kill them now? After these two plans succeeded, his third plan was to join Zombie Alliance. But with the current situation, Fang Yuan had insufficient control of the circumstances. He had to take a risk and join Zombie Alliance, even if it was dangerous. As he flew, Fang Yuan considered the plan for joining Zombie Alliance again. Along the way, he met many bird groups, but they were all repelled by Fang Yuan's immortal zombie aura. Only once, he met a desolate beast flying snake. Fang Yuan did not want to waste time and avoided it. Although Northern Plains was huge, having 5 billion square kilometers of surface area, 10 times that of Earth, but Fang Yuan's current location was not far from his destination. After half a day, he saw a mountain on the horizon. It was Kumu Mountain. Chapter 738, Old Earth Wood, Immortal Zombie Guyi. Kumu Mountain, rather than a mountain, it looked more like a giant dead wooden tree that extended into the clouds. The name of the wood was Old Earth. Old Earth Wood had a long lifespan. This particular pillar of Old Earth Wood had more than 1,000,000 years of history. From Reckless Savage Demon Venerable's era, to Red Lotus Demon Venerable, Genesis Lotus Immortal Venerable, Thieving Heaven Demon Venerable, Giant Sun Immortal Venerable, and then to Spectral Soul Demon Venerable and Paradise Earth Immortal Venerable. Even after Paradise Earth Immortal Venerable died, it was still alive. When it had lush leaves, the greenery covered the entire sky, and it produced countless fresh fruits. On its strong branches, unique tree farms could be created. During its golden years, it was usually owned by the strongest Gu immortals or the most powerful forces in Northern Plains. But as the river of time continued to flow, the lush green leaves wilted, its strong trunk decayed, its glorious days were over, and it became a gloomy and silent structure. Long ago, countless forces had fought over it, fighting with their lives or even dying due to the Old Earth Wood, but eventually, its late years were lonely. The barren tree branches could only create a shade over a small area, attempting to pitifully recreate its former glory. Right now, the Old Earth Wood tree's main trunk was mostly dead, only a small portion still had a little bit of life left. From a mystical treasure that everyone was after, to a monument that nobody visits, it was like an aged giant, bending its back and sitting on the ground calmly, awaiting the end of its life. Fang Yuan did not come here to admire the Old Earth Wood tree, he was here for the immortal zombie who was living on top of the Old Earth Wood. This immortal zombie was a Woodpath Gu immortal during his life, his name was Gu Yi. If Fang Yuan wanted to join Northern Plains Zombie Alliance, he would need an immortal zombie's recommendation. Fang Yuan had already gotten the details of Northern Plains Zombie Alliance from Fairy Li Shan. The reason why he chose Gu Yi was not because this person was special, but because he was the closest. As he got close to the Old Earth Wood tree, Fang Yuan slowed his speed, but he did not see Gu Yi appearing. He frowned slightly, this Gu Ye's alertness was simply too terrible. Finally, when he arrived at the Old Earth Wood tree, Fang Yuan shouted, "Is Old Earth City Lord around? My name is Sha Huang and I am here to visit." His voice echoed through the old earthwood tree, causing the wilted leaves to scatter onto the ground. From a deep part of the old earth wood, a figure came out. Why are there more people? Do you really think I, Gu, am easy to bully? His tone was filled with anger and helplessness. Gu appeared before Fang Yuan. He was yellowish in color, tall and skinny, resembling the old earth wood. There were wooden markings on his skin. It was an immortal zombie body that resembled dead wood. Seeing Fang Yuan, Gu was stunned. The anger vanished on his face as he said hesitantly, "Sir is? I am Sha Huang. I have turned into an immortal zombie recently without much choice. I wanted to join Northern Plains Zombie Alliance. I wonder if Old Earth City Lord may give me a recommendation." Fang Yuan cupped his fists as he expressed his intention directly. "Oh, you are a newcomer who wants to join Zombie Alliance. A pleasure to meet you." Gu Ye's expression changed. He quickly greeted back while smiling. "I thought it was, forget it, let's not talk about it. We are all in the same boat, please come in." Fang Yuan slowly flew up. Under Gu Ye's lead, they traveled past many rotten leaves and branches, arriving at a deep part of the branches of the old earthwood tree. This was a city. It was completely built on the old earthwood branches. It resembled a carved wooden city. It was quite unique. Countless wooden houses were lined up, some were tall while some were short. Not only were there common squares, there were towers and city walls. All sorts of streets and paths were interconnected like blood vessels, moving along the countless branches. There were also all sorts of vine ladders, either drooping or hanging from one branch to another. It was a pity that this wooden city was half destroyed. Large numbers of houses had collapsed. The yellow vine ladders were no longer green. They could not sustain any weight. When the cold winds blew, the vines might break, landing on the branches and causing a loud sound. This is Old Earth City. Although it is like this, the atmosphere still remains. Back in the day, this was a popular area and countless famous characters gathered here. This was once the heart of Northern Plains. Fang Yuan looked around as he sighed casually. The city is dead, there is nothing left. Brother Sha is calling me Old Earth City Lord, but that title is very hollow now. Gu laughed bitterly at the side. To speak the truth, if not for this place still producing a woodpath resource called wilted essence, who would care about it? Fang Yuan nodded, agreeing, that is indeed the case. Gu sighed deeply. Sigh, if I knew that this place was so barren, would not have accepted this mission from Zombie Alliance. But the duration of my mission is almost over. I can leave this painful place already. Brother, look at my pathetic state and learn from it. When you enter Zombie Alliance, do not choose the mission of guarding Old Earth Wood. Fang Yuan had already guessed that Gu Yi was injured. Seeing him say this, he placed his gaze naturally on his face. Gu Ye's face was swollen. It looked like a pink peach was growing on one side of his cheeks. The other side of his face was caved in, filled with many cracks. Looking at him, his entire head was in a strange shape, like a deformed melon. Not only that, there was a long scar on his chest. Although the scar was shallow, the injury was big. There was poisonous gas that were dark purple in color spiraling it. Even if Brother Gu didn't mention it, I was going to ask. Where did you get your injuries from? Fang Yuan asked. Sigh, brother. Seeing that you have just turned into an immortal zombie, you still do not know the pain of immortal zombies. Gu sighed pitifully. He was about to start his story when there was a loud sound outside. The entire old earthwood tree shook intensely as wilted leaves flew. Even the rotting branches that seemed like tall pillars collapsed. They came crashing down. Gu Ye's expression changed. Next, Fang Yuan heard someone shouting from outside, Gu Yi, come out now, this divine lord is here to make a transaction with you. Gu Ye's expression became uglier, his eyes were spewing fire as he gritted his teeth. Divine Lord Tian Du again. Bam! Another loud bang. Old earthwood shook again, leaves fell from the branches like a huge rain. The beautiful wooden houses collapsed, causing dust and smoke to rise. Outside, there was another Gu immortal shouting, "Gu right? Come out now, I am Xianxia, come out, I have a matter to discuss with you." Saying so, there was another loud bang, causing a distressing noise in the old earth wood. Looking at their actions, they were not going to give up until Gu Yi showed up. Gu Ye's expression was very ugly. He clenched his fists as he took a few deep breaths, smiling forcibly at Fang Yuan. "Brother Xia, take a seat first, I will be back shortly." "No worry, I will go with you," Fang Yuan said. "Your F. Vorite stories on /o/v/lb n.c.m. Gu Yi showed a touched expression as he cupped his fists, thanking sincerely. "Then I will thank brother in advance." The two walked out of the old earthwood tree, seeing the two rank 6 Gu immortals in the sky. One had a strong muscular body, his skin was bronze in color as lightning coiled around his body, his name was Divine Lord Tiandu. The other had messy hair, he looked like a brute carrying a skull, it was Xianxia. Seeing Fang Yuan, Divine Lord Tiandu was stunned before laughing, to think that Gu Yi found a helper. "But it is a pity, you found an immortal zombie." In his speech, he did not hide the disdain towards immortal zombies. "You!" Gu Yi flew into a rage, about to speak. Divine Lord Tiandu waved his hand, saying impatiently, "I will not talk trash with you, I know that you have some wilted essence with you. My friend has an immortal essence stone, he will buy 150 kilograms of wilted essence from you." "One immortal essence stone for 150 kilograms of wilted essence, why don't you just rob us instead?" Gu Yi was stomping his feet in anger, shouting. "Robbing is possible too, but seeing that you are Divine Lord's friend, I wanted to do him a favor." Xianxia snickered, his attitude was very arrogant, as if Gu Yi was helpless against him. "You two are shameless, you are basically bandits." Gu Yi stared with wide-opened eyes, his lungs were about to explode. He did not attack in the end. He was furious, but also extremely helpless. The other party were two rank 6 Gu immortals, but he was only a rank 6 immortal zombie, his blessed land was dead and he only had over a dozen immortal essence stones. Even though he would fight with them, what would he do after that? Ignoring the question of whether he could win, even if he won, he would expend a lot of green grape immortal essence. Without the blessed land's replenishment, he could only use immortal essence stones to replenish it. After one battle, he would go bankrupt. Gu Yi was full of worries, he looked at Fang Yuan beside him. Actually, Divine Lord Tiandu and Xianxia were also looking at Fang Yuan. Divine Lord Tiandu had extorted Gu Yi many times already, he knew about Gu Ye's background, but he did not know anything about Fang Yuan. Furthermore, it seemed like Fang Yuan was Gu Ye's helper. But why would Fang Yuan help Gu Yi for no good reason? His gaze flickered, he showed a hesitant expression as he asked Gu Yi in a weak tone, "Brother Gu, what is going on? Who is the other party? Such absurd demands, why isn't the Zombie Alliance interfering?" Seeing Fang Yuan's hesitation, Gu Yi lost all hope, he sighed deeply, "The Zombie Alliance can interfere, but I cannot afford it. It was better when Leader was around, but now, sigh. Forget it, after you join the Zombie Alliance, you will learn about it, brother." "Is that so?" Fang Yuan's face showed a perfect mix of shock, disappointment, and even worry towards the future. Hearing their conversation, Divine Lord Tiandu and Xianxia could see the joy in each other's faces. So this newly emerged immortal zombie wants to join the Zombie Alliance. We are going to successfully extort him again. The two transmitted. As they expected, Gu Yi was helpless but to accept their demands. Eventually, he sold 150 kilograms of wilted essence for one immortal essence stone. Hahaha, this was a pleasant business deal. Gu Yi, when you ask for help next time, at least invite a living person. The two left while laughing loudly. Sigh, this rotten place, I do not want to stay here for even one more second. Gu showed disappointment, his head was sinking even lower now. Chapter 739, Dark Flow Giant City. Fang Yuan watched as Divine Lord Tian Du and Shi Ho disappeared into the horizon, before retracting his gaze, looking at the immortal zombie Gu beside him with a slightly flickering gaze. With a trembling and hesitant voice, he said, "Brother Gu, may I ask, how many times has this happened?" Gu restrained his grieving expression, and patted Fang Yuan's shoulder, comforting him on the contrary, "Not too many. It is just that with the nearing of Qin Bai Sheng's auction, some shameless scumbags are trying everything they can to get the capital to participate in this level of grand event." Fang Yuan had not helped him, but Gu did not blame him. He did not have any hope, thus his disappointment and grief had no relation to Fang Yuan. With this, even though they had just met each other, Gu was even more certain that Fang Yuan's situation was similar to his and even slightly worse, as a fallen Gu immortal who had helplessly turned to becoming an immortal zombie. But this behavior is too ugly. Fang Yuan pretended to be indignant. This expression looked like his true feelings in Gu Ye's eyes. At least there is something to cover the humiliation. Gu looked at the immortal essence stone on his hand with irony. This immortal essence stone was the price Shi Ho and Divine Lord Tian Du had paid for 150 kilograms of wilted essence. He shook the immortal essence stone. "Look, Divine Lord Tian Du and Shi Ho might be strong, but they still are apprehensive of zombie alliance behind us and had to give us face in this way. Could it be that zombie alliance's face is only worth one immortal essence stone?" Fang Yuan's expression was aghast, as he made an inquiry. Gu laughed. His laughter was bitter, mixed with helplessness, sadness and grief. He looked at Fang Yuan, and felt he was looking at himself back when he had just joined Zombie Alliance. He patted Fang Yuan's shoulder again. "Brother Sha, you have reached this point and also know the hardships and disadvantages of immortal zombie. Blessed lands of us immortal zombies are already dead and cannot be operated, and cannot produce immortal essence. If I have to say it bluntly, we are on our dying breaths. Thus, we have to rely on external resources even more than those living Gu immortals. You also might have already heard about it, Zombie Alliance indeed has many immortal zombies like you. But if you want to rely on these people as support and to help maintain your face, you have to pay the price." Gu Ye's words had deep implications. Price? Fang Yuan pretended to not understand. Yes. If you want to request a rank 6 immortal zombie to help you, you need 2 immortal essence stones, and this is only the initial price. The concrete amount will depend on how intense the fight is. If you want to request a rank 7 immortal zombie, you need 20 immortal essence stones. Similarly, this price is only the initial price. If you have sufficient immortal essence stones, you can even request the whole of Zombie Alliance to support you. But if you don't have money or don't want to pay the price, then your face can only be worth this much. When Gu said this, he slightly raised that immortal essence stone and intentionally shook it. Blessed lands of immortal zombies were already dead. It was hard to engage in business to generate income and they had to rely on more external resources. This made immortal zombies have to meticulously plan and often choose to endure as opposed to fight. Only like this could they barely maintain their livelihoods. Like with Fang Yuan previously, he could not produce green grape immortal essence by himself and could only use immortal essence stones to substitute. The pressure was too high. In that intense battle with He Cheng, his finances almost collapsed and fell into a plight again. Fortunately, Fang Yuan had Hu immortal blessed land, which reduced the significance of his immortal aperture being dead. What was even more fortunate was that he had Wisdom Gu's help. And there were extremely large benefits to using the light of wisdom with an immortal zombie body. First was the immortal Gu recipe transactions with Xianxia land spirit, which allowed Fang Yuan to get out of the mire. Then with the help of the light of wisdom, he was able to innovate air sac Gu and engage in the guts Gu business, making immortal crane sect compromise, and greatly improving his entire living environment. If I didn't have these, my situation might be extremely dismal just like Gu Ye's. Fang Yuan sighed inwardly, while on the surface he showed a look of realization and took a step back, bowing and cupping his fists. Brother Gu Yi, I have received your teachings. Gu Yi shook his head. Even without me speaking of these truths, you would understand it for yourself after some time. No need for thanks. Come, I will bring you to Zombie Alliance. Fang Yuan followed Gu Yi to the depths of the old earth wood branches at that exquisite wood city again. Gu Yi flew ahead to a large plaza in the center of the wood city. The plaza was in ruins, from the damaged floor tiles to the surrounding destroyed flower beds and dried-up fountain. One might be able to only get a glimpse of its past prosperity. Gu Yi and Fang Yuan stood in the center of the plaza. Rise! Gu Yi mobilized his primeval essence. The plaza's surface instantly brightened. The thick and solid floor became translucent like a giant jade. The green jade light circulated around, shadows of countless Gu worms fluttered within the light. At the same time, large numbers of mortal Gu flew out of Gu Ye's body, mostly being rank 5 space path Gu and rank 4 wood path Gu. These Gu worms flew above Fang Yuan and started to rapidly revolve like a hurricane. In the dusky surroundings, rays of brilliant light gradually appeared. Gu Yi continued to mobilize his primeval essence unceasingly. These flowing lights rapidly increased in number and soon created a vast bluish-green patch. Untold numbers of mortal Gu, under some wondrous rhythm, converged their powers, overlaying on top of one another and mutually amplifying themselves, finally forming a might display. This is a top-tier mortal killer move our Zombie Alliance researched, Green Crystal Hero's Path. It can span across hundreds of thousands of li, directly connecting the old Earth Wood and Zombie Alliance's garrison. You know us immortal zombies are Gu immortals as well, our bodies are filled with Dao marks, thus normal methods are unable to transport us. Gu Yi explained at the appropriate moment. Fang Yuan nodded. Immortal zombies might have weaker battle strength causing their status to lower, and their thoughts to slow down, but their accumulations and foundations still remained for the most part. Especially when immortal zombies are in a similar situation, they could cast aside prejudices unlike normal Gu immortals and cooperate with each other. Thus, being able to research a peak-tier mortal killer move was not strange. Gu Yi continued, I looked after the myriad poison date tree in Zombie Alliance for 2 years before I was able to get enough contribution points to exchange for this Green Crystal Hero's Path. Ah, right, you might be confused. Brother Sha, if you choose tasks which needs you to go outside, Zombie Alliance's prerequisite is that you have to grasp the killer move Green Crystal Hero's Path. Only with this can you reach Zombie Alliance at any time. They did not have fixed immortal travel, did not have Stargate and also did not have moving perspective cup Gu. Normal Gu immortals could use connecting heaven Gu and whole earth Gu, but immortal zombies could not because of their dead apertures. Connecting heaven Gu and whole earth Gu were only mortal Gu. The reason they could connect between blessed lands or grotto heavens was because the two small worlds involved would silently consume heavenly power. And an immortal zombie's blessed land or grotto heaven was already dead, and was unable to expend heavenly power. To set up connecting heaven Gu and whole earth Gu required the consent of both sides. Only with this, the immortal apertures could use heavenly power. If they were secretly set up, they would not be able to connect because of the absence of heavenly power. Connecting heaven Gu and whole earth Gu also could not be used if they were set up outside in the 5 regions. Ah, so Green Crystal Hero's Path was this important. Hearing Gu Yi explain again, Fang Yuan showed an appropriately admiring and envious look. Gu Yi caught Fang Yuan's expression and felt refreshed. The grief from the forceful transaction earlier eased up by a lot. Happiness often comes from comparison. Instantly, Gu felt Fang Yuan was much more pleasing to the eyes. A thick green light soared to the skies from the dense dried yellow old earth branches and leaves. After a while, in Dark Flow City, over 100,000 li away, on the plaza in the southeast section, a dark green light suddenly fell down. The light engulfed the plaza, dyeing the surroundings green. Wind surged, and the hanging iron lanterns in the plaza constantly shook and squeaked. The light quickly disappeared. In the originally empty plaza appeared Gu Yi and Fang Yuan. "Let's go, we should not stay here for long." Gu Yi composed himself and walked forward, with Fang Yuan closely following behind. This giant city was named Dark Flow. It was pitch black, resembling a giant beast sprawled on the ground. The sun was setting to the west and there was still a source of light. However, every tile and brick of the giant Dark Flow city emitted a dense darkness that dyed the surroundings black. Follow the latest novels. n/velbin.com. Especially, the closer one got to the center of Dark Flow giant city, the denser this darkness became. Fang Yuan and Gu Yi walked ahead, but saw no humans in their path. The long path had street lamps erected every few hundred steps. But these street lamps let out weak dusky yellow light which only lit some dozens of steps, leaving behind long stretches of darkness in between the gaps of the street lamps, making the darkness of the giant city even more conspicuous. The large Dark Flow city felt like an abandoned city. However, there were still some faint clamoring noises coming from below the giant city. This is the main headquarters of our zombie alliance in Northern Plains, and it is almost as large as a mountain. It is divided into 7 floors. The lower 5 floors are the residences of mortal Gu masters and are very bustling and clamorous. 1 floor above is where immortal zombies and people with some relation to us reside. The highest floor has the conference hall where 3 rank 7 immortal zombies are stationed throughout the year. Gu Yi gave an appropriate explanation. Fang Yuan nodded without being surprised. Zombie Alliance was not an organization that was only formed from immortal level members, but also covered mortal Gu masters. These Gu masters, for the most part, made use of Dark Path, raising zombies, commanding zombies and even transforming into zombies. The two walked for a while, arriving in front of a large hall without seeing anyone in the way. Tall stone statues stood on either side of the large hall. They were taller and bulkier than even Fang Yuan's 8-arm immortal zombie physique. Fang Yuan carefully observed them. His eyes narrowed slightly as he discovered these stone statues were not as simple as they looked. "You find it strange too?" This is Yin Lu Gong's immortal killer moved stone casket. Inside them are not ordinary zombies but immortal zombies. Gu Yi said this, then said in a lower voice, "Yin Lu Gong is one of the experts of our zombie alliance. When the city lord left Northern Plains, they assigned 3 deputy city lords. He is one of them and can command immortal zombies to fight for him." Yin Lu Gong. Fang Yuan silently engraved this name to his mind. This name was not in his previous life's memories. But just based on the fact Yin Lu Gong could command immortal zombies to fight, he needed to be attached importance. In my previous life, my rise was a matter that occurred 300 to 400 years later. And in this period of time, it was not that no outstanding characters emerged, but due to all sorts of reasons, they were washed away by the river of time. Fang Yuan was cautious, with no hint of carelessness. "Come and push the door." Gu Yi suddenly moved to the side. "So long as you can open this large door, you will have the qualifications to join Zombie Alliance." Fang Yuan quietly put his 2 arms on the door and softly pushed, opening the door by a sliver. Instantly, over 20 sharp, gloomy or dull gazes followed the crack and shot towards Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan intentionally changed his expression slightly, then he took a deep breath and fiercely pushed open the door completely. Gu Yi laughed heartily while patting Fang Yuan's shoulder. being able to push open this large door means you are a person of Northern Plains. Come, your timing is really exquisite, our Zombie Alliance's meeting is held today. Chapter 740, Nine Heavens Fragment. Central Continent. White egrets flew in the sky, the weather was pleasant today. 3 rank 7 Gu immortals who came from Combat Immortal sect had gathered within this sky. According to Immortal Monkey King's request for help, it should be this place. Xian looked around as he said. He was dressed in a green robe, he had a slim figure and his eyes were dark like an abyss, as if incapable of being alarmed. Although this place looks ordinary, it is evident that the grotto heaven opening that was stated in the letter has closed up. But to check if it is really this place, we will need Divine Mother's help. Valley Lord Ming He, who was dressed in a white robe, looked over. Beside him was a female Gu immortal. Beautiful and elegant, she was dressed in a golden robe and radiated majesty and dignity. She was a Space Path Gu immortal, known as Divine Mother Ju Kong. Among these 3, she was the oldest Gu immortal, being over 900 years old. Divine Mother Ju Kong closed her eyes, using her mysterious method, her aura remained calm and there was not even any trace of fluctuation. In a short while, she opened her eyes, letting out a breath of foggy air. It is here indeed, Starry Sky Grotto Heaven is located at this place. The other 2 immortals heard this and their spirits lifted. 7-Star Child did not have much reputation back then, he actually cultivated to this extent without making a sound. In fact, his grotto heaven even absorbed a fragment of blue heaven. Precisely because of this, Starry Sky Grotto Heaven could still exist now. It is incredible. Xian sighed. During the immemorial antiquity era, the world of Gu Masters had 9 heavens in the sky. Red, orange, yellow, green, azure, blue, purple, white, black, they formed the immemorial 9 heavens. But 7 of the 9 heavens were destroyed by Renzu's children. Right now, only black and white heaven were left alternating in the sky. 7-Star Child had a fortuitous encounter in the past, he secretly absorbed a fragment of blue heaven, this allowed his grotto heaven to exist to this day, and not become a dead aperture due to his state. The immemorial 9 heavens were 9 different worlds. The immortal apertures of Gu immortals were also worlds, worlds could swallow one another, the most famous example was Treasure Yellow Heaven. Back then, Treasure Yellow Heaven's owner, rank 8 Gu immortal, Daoist Countless Treasures, unexpectedly obtained a fragment world of Yellow Heaven. Thus, after he fused it into his grotto heaven, it formed Treasure Yellow Heaven. After Treasure Yellow Heaven was formed, it became extraordinary, and continued existing even until today. Once a grotto heaven absorbs a 9 heavens fragment, the benefits are really great. Not only will they gain some unpredictable mystical power, the immortal aperture's heavenly power would become unlimited. Furthermore, calamities and tribulations would weaken greatly, or completely vanish. If I can obtain such a fragment world, I might even wake up laughing in my sleep. Valley Lord Ming He was full of envy. Dream on, Ming He. Get your cultivation level to rank 8 first. Only a grotto heaven of a rank 8 Gu immortal can absorb a 9 heavens fragment world. Xian laughed. Valley Lord Ming He heard this and laughed bitterly. I want to get to rank 8 too, but I have no confidence in surviving the second grand tribulation. Thinking about how rank 8 Gu immortals have to undergo a grand tribulation every 50 years, I shudder at that thought. As for the myriad tribulation that is even more terrifying than grand tribulations, I simply cannot imagine them. Maybe, only someone like Shirley has no fear. Blessed lands had fortune, but heaven and earth was balanced, thus, once in a while, calamities and tribulations would befall. Rank 6 Gu immortals experience an earthly calamity every 10 years, and a heavenly tribulation every 100 years. Thus, when assessing a Gu immortal's cultivation level, they often used the heavenly tribulation as the standard. Feng Yuan was a 2 heavenly tribulations expert in his previous life. After a rank 6 Gu immortal goes through 3 heavenly tribulations, their blessed land would expand to another level, and they would become a rank 7 Gu immortal. Rank 7 Gu immortals face an earthly calamity every 10 years, a heavenly tribulation every 50 years, and a grand tribulation every 100 years. Xianxia and Valley Lord Ming He were 1 grand tribulation Gu immortals, while Divine Mother Ju Kong was a level higher than them, being at 2 grand tribulations cultivation level. As for rank 8 Gu immortals, they no longer experienced any earthly calamities, but they faced a heavenly tribulation every 10 years, a grand tribulation every 50 years, and a myriad tribulation every 100 years. Myriad tribulations were far more scary than heavenly tribulations. They were known as hopeless myriad tribulations among Gu immortals. The difficulty was extremely high. Thus, 9 heavens fragments were much more precious. Because the immemorial 9 heavens were a part of the large world of Gu masters. Calamities and tribulations would only descend upon blessed lands and grotto heavens as they were immortal aperture worlds. This did not happen in the 5 regions or the immemorial 9 heavens. After the grotto heaven devours the 9 heavens fragment, in a way, they become a part of the large world of Gu masters. This could greatly reduce the size and power of the calamities and tribulations, and the grotto heaven would not die if the Gu immortal dies. For example, Starry Sky Grotto Heaven was still intact despite 7-star child already becoming an immortal zombie. If the 9 heavens fragment that was absorbed was big, calamities and tribulations could vanish for good. For example, Treasure Yellow Heaven had never experienced any calamities or tribulations. It was now the biggest trading area in the Gu immortal world. The benefits of absorbing a 9 heavens fragment are huge. But don't forget, this method has a weakness too. Even if you absorb just a bit of the 9 heavens fragment, you will take in the aura of the greater world. Once the grotto heaven is rooted into it, it can never be placed into your body again. Divine Mother Ju Kong reminded them. Xianxia nodded, agreeing. Simply put, by absorbing the 9 heavens fragment, the Gu immortal loses their freedom. They can only stay inside their immortal aperture world and cannot move about in the outside world. This is truly a huge loss. But if a 9 heavens fragment appears before me, I would choose it without hesitation. That's right. Valley Lord Ming He agreed. Calamities and tribulations are too hard to survive. Sometimes, I would want to become an immortal zombie. At least their dead lands would not experience any calamities or tribulations. Alright, handling the task is the most important matter. We purposely wasted so many days. I'm sure that Monkey King has learned his lesson. Divine Mother Ju Kong slowly closed her eyes. Valley Lord Ming He fell into silence. Xianxia laughed. After we save Shirley, I want to see if he can still act arrogant again. Divine Mother Ju Kong could no longer keep a calm aura. Her golden robe fluttered as the aura of immortal Gu burst out from her. Open. Suddenly, she opened her eyes. Her gaze was sharp as it pierced a hole into the void before her. The hole was about the size of a man. Through this hole, the 3 Gu immortals could directly see the scenery inside Starry Sky Grotto Heaven. The 3 immortals did not speak. Xianxia charged ahead and entered it. Next, Valley Lord Ming He entered, followed by Divine Mother Ju Kong. But at the next moment, the 3 Gu immortals appeared in the sky again. What is going on? Xianxia and Valley Lord Ming He showed some shock on their faces. Divine Mother Ju Kong's expression was solemn. Her relaxed appearance was gone as she muttered, "In is not in, out is not out, space is interchanging, swapping around. This is the mystical ability Starry Sky Grotto Heaven obtained after absorbing the blue heaven fragment." Yes. Shirley mentioned this in his request for help as well. Valley Lord Ming, he recalled. It is not strange, why would it be simple if it could trap this monkey? Xian said. Divine Mother Ju Kong snorted coldly, this is only a minor problem. At the same time, in Northern Plains, Zombie Alliance branch, inside Dark Flow Giant City. This place had densely accumulated darkness, even the clear skies could not shine any sunlight into here. Fong Yuan pushed open the door and was inspected by more than 20 gazes. He purposely showed a scared and hesitant expression as he stepped into the discussion hall. He paid his respects, shouting, I am Sha Huang, greetings to my fellow brethren. Fellow brethren, you used a good phrase. We members of Zombie Alliance are in the same situation, we should help each other. On the main seat of the discussion hall, there was an immortal zombie smiling as he said. He was a fatty, he was over 6 meters tall, just like Fong Yuan's 8-arm immortal zombie form, but he was at least 3 times fatter than Fong Yuan. His skin was like bronze, his stomach was like a wine vat, big and round. Not just his stomach, his face, arms, fingers, they were all extremely round. Fong Yuan saw him and thought of the information he had, flesh bronze zombie body, Yin Lu Gong. Before Fong Yuan came to the Zombie Alliance, he had gotten the relevant information from Fairy Li Shan. Immortal Zombie Guyi beside him thought that Fong Yuan was a newbie, he quickly paid respects. Guyu pays respects to Lord Yin Lu Gong, Lord Dragon Commander Yi Cha, and Lord Huang Quan Wang. Fong Yuan followed after him, I greet Lord Yin Lu Gong, Lord Dragon Commander Yi Cha, and Lord Huang Quan Wang. Saying so, he gave Guyi a look of gratitude. Guyi smiled at him. Yin Lu Gong was seated at the center seat, on his left was Dragon Commander Yi Cha, he was sitting up straight with a ruthless expression, his fangs were pale and sharp, on the right was Huang Quan Wang, he looked old and had a hunched back. Even though they had overflowing death energy, their rank 7 aura could not be concealed. These 3 immortal zombies had true rank 7 cultivation level, they were stationed in Dark Flow Giant City. Sha Huang, is this your real name? Dragon Commander Yi Cha asked, his words were like steel, once he spoke, a strong wave of killing intent burst out, making one feel as if they were in the middle of a terrifying battlefield. This was due to his experiences. Dragon Commander Yi Cha was a lone cultivator, he had joined the Imperial Court contest and had used some of the opportunities inside Imperial Court blessed land to accumulate his foundation and become a Gu immortal. In other words, he had very rich battle experience, nobody dared to look down on him. He opened his mouth, and his tone showed his imposing nature, it made people feel like he was pressuring them heavily. Of course not. Fong Yuan laughed bitterly, Sha Huang was the name I gave myself on the 2nd day after I became an immortal zombie. It signified a new beginning, for me to temporarily forget my past glory. I had once sworn to heaven, only when I regain my real body and get rid of my immortal zombie status would I use my former name again. Once he said that, all of the immortals in the discussion showed varying expressions. There was disdain, sneers, silence, sadness, but mostly, understanding. Fong Yuan's current performance and his mental state was just like theirs in the past. But after so many years, their grand ambitions were gone, their hopes and desires were almost completely burnt out. They were still immortal zombies now, life had not changed for the better. Alright, since Sha Huang opened the door, then he is a Northern Plains Gu immortal. We in Zombie Alliance would be stronger with one more member. He has already proven himself. One has to know, previously, even Yao Huang did not manage to push open this door. Guh. 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 Huang Quan Wang said as he started coughing, showing his old and weak state.